And welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I call to order the Clackamas County, hello? Hello, Mom? Hello. It went kind of dead. I don't have any microphone that I can tell. Can you hear me now? Only because I got a loud voice, right?
Test. No, they're on.
Test. Oh, my, pull it close to me, I guess. All right. Anyway, I call the meeting to order, and I'll ask Mr. Krupp, our county administrator, to take the roll.
Well, good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Tonight, joining us, representing County Counsel, is Mr. Chris Storey, and then, of course, Mary Rathke, our clerk of the board. I'll start with Mr. Bernard. Commissioner Bernard?
Here.
Commissioner Schmidt?
Here.
Commissioner Reynolds?
Here.
Commissioner Savis?
Here.
Commissioner Schrader?
Here.
Chair Ludlow.
Here. Would all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. There is no comma after the word nation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm going to retrain the world on that. Look it up, I swear, there's no comma after nation. But it's a habit we probably learned in school. I'm going to announce the board will recess as the Board of County Commissioners and convene as the Housing Authority Board for the next item. And I'd like to introduce, as we've already heard, our Housing Authority Commissioner, Paul Reynolds, to my left.
Thank you.
And so I'll ask the clerk to read the Housing Authority consent agenda by title.
Okay, we have one item. It's approval of a contract between Housing Authority of Clackamas County and Lake Oswego Construction, project number 15002, for the modernization of 10 dwelling units.
All right. Any commissioners have any questions or clarification or wish to pull this single item? All right, I'll ask for a motion.
I move we approve the Housing Authority consent agenda.
Second.
All right. It's moved by Commissioner Reynolds, seconded by Commissioner Smith. Any further discussion? All right, Mary?
Commissioner Reynolds?
Aye.
Commissioner Bernard?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
Commissioner Savis? And Chair Ludlow.
Aye, passes 6-0. I'll announce the board will adjourn as the Housing Authority Board and reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners for the remainder of the meeting. Thank you, Commissioner Reynolds. Appreciate you coming tonight. And you can stick around if you really want to look at all the people who want to talk. It's good stuff. All right, it's time for citizens communication. Ladies and gentlemen, we have more than 20 cards, and we have 2 additional public hearings tonight. So I'm going to ask you to limit your comments to 2 minutes. Now, I think in this particular case, we've been getting hundreds of emails, so we will hear a lot of the same testimony. So again, my encouragement is, we've done this before, is if somebody says, and I think it has an impact on us as well, that if somebody says something you like at the end of their testimony, raise your hand. It's sometimes very impressive, by the way, so thank you for that. All right, we're going to start with a couple, and I'll put 2 on deck as we go through these names. Sometimes they're hard to read, so I apologize in advance for mispronouncing. Terry Finch and Shirley Sonnenberg, followed by Lisa Bartley and Leslie Shirk. Either one of you.
My name is Terry Finch. I live in Milwaukee. I want to thank you for listening to me. I'm going to get short and straight to the point. Landlords in this county are given no cause termination of contracts for absolutely no reason. It is very probable that you are going to have 2 more homeless people in the city of the county of Clackamas, me and my 13-year-old son. We are being terminated for no cause. If they wanted to turn the apartment over, why can't they give me another apartment that's going to be available? This commission needs to change local laws. I know there are laws going in the state, but that is simply not enough. You've got to start thinking of people living under bridges, in the county parks, and they're going to be living there soon. Every time you drive by a 13-year-old boy, please wave. It may be my son. He goes to Laurel Middle School, and I picked this community because of how good it was. But I'm being told that I do not earn enough money to get into an apartment. I earn $28,000 a year, and that is not enough. So I went to the Section 8 office the other day, and I was told that the waiting list was closed in 2009. 7 years ago, that waiting list has been closed. That's how long you guys have been sitting on your butts not doing anything. I'm sorry for the being rude, but I am going to be living in a tent here in about 2 weeks. Please talk to your citizens. Find out what the real problem is. And we all know it's the landlords have more money to lobby in the state. We all know that it's landlords that will commission and make the laws, and the attorneys make the laws to protect themselves. But please start thinking, form committees, and start changing local laws for the citizens of this community. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, briefly, as you know, the state is approaching some rules right now on that. But as far as us sitting on our butts, understand that subsidized housing, and that's what it is, those monies mainly come from the federal government. And those monies have not increased. In fact, they have decreased. So regardless of the size of our butts or where they've been.
If the new laws were protecting
I
the
thought,
citizens
you know,
anyway.
let me finish. Go ahead then.
I apologize.
I'm done. Thank you. Yes, Shirley.
Hi, I'm Shirley Soderberg, and I reside in Clackamas County, unincorporated in the Oak Grove area. I'm here tonight to address the travesty of closing the Oak Grove Library. The city of Gladstone voted down monies when they had the chance to rebuild their library. They spent buku millions to study the feasibility of their library, and it went nowhere. Now it's been decided that Clackamas County money from the Oak Grove Library should be funneled into Gladstone Library, so the people of Gladstone can get a new library, and the Oak Grove people can just sort of go over there or go to Leading and Milwaukee. But you know, there's thousands and thousands of people that use that library in Oak Grove. I myself and my family use it weekly. I get a lot of services out of that library, and I think it's really, really discouraging that the people of Oak Grove did not even get any voice or any type of communication as to whether they wanted this to happen or not. So I'm frankly disappointed in the whole situation. I would urge you to not close the Oak Grove Library.
Well, that gave me an idea of the flavor of the room. Thank you. I appreciate you doing that. Thank you, Shirley. All right, as I announced, the next two up are Lisa Bartley, Leslie Shirk, followed by Al Scott and Mike Schmidt. Go ahead.
My name is Leslie Shirk. I have lived in Oak Grove since 1977. Oak Grove Library must not be closed. It should be expanded and improved to the extent that our library tax dollars allow. Library cities has failed as a concept when applied to Gladstone and Oak Lodge. Over 7 years of failure to implement the concept should provide sufficient evidence of that. Gladstone's current plan to build a new library for Gladstone, housed in a new Gladstone City Hall in the heart of downtown Gladstone, is the latest example of why Library Cities is so disastrous for your Oak Lodge area constituents. There are no benefits to us to achieve this plan. There are no benefits to us, and to achieve this plan, Gladstone will use our library taxes for purposes other than what the voters approved. In 2008, I voted yes to provide funding to prevent my library from being closed. But shame on me. I was ignorant of the embedded concept of library cities that would close Oak Lodge Library and assign our citizens and library funds to Gladstone. Ignorance is no excuse, but library cities and its serious consequences for Oak Lodge Library were absent from the explanatory statement of the ballot measure. In retrospect, I feel tricked. It is a cruel act to replace a library that serves our citizens well with one that will not. We voted to tax ourselves to keep it open. At least that's what many, perhaps most voters thought we were doing. We are diminished as a community if we lose our library, and we don't deserve that. I want to trust that you will be responsive to the needs and expectations of our constituents instead of continuing to choose to stay the course with the failed library cities concept. Don't let the performance Clackamas goal of building public trust through good government be a platitude, rather than a serious commitment to all Clackamas County citizens.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Elizabeth Bentley, and I have lived in the Oak Lodge area off and on since 1962. Since 2008, plans for a combined Oak Lodge Gladstone Library have roiled forward in fits and starts. As it now stands, Gladstone residents chose not to contribute city funds to build and operate a new library for both communities. Gladstone is relying on levy funds from Oak Lodge residents to cover most of the costs. I served on the Gladstone Interim Committee in 2014 for 5 long months. The original Gladstone plan, which called for a 19,000 square foot library, was about right by today's minimum state library standards. It will be serving 2 communities, one of which has the potential for endless population growth in the years to come. The same issues the 3 Oak Lodge representatives on the committee asked the 29 Gladstone members to address in the spring of 2014 remain the same: to build a library sufficiently large to serve the 2 communities well, and to allow Oak Lodge voters to vote on any new library plan, including location. It's time to start over, folks. Lots of ideas have been suggested to resolve the impasse, including a satellite library for Oak Lodge. But no matter what, Oak Lodge residents must be allowed to vote on any new library plan, including its location. As our county commissioners, you must okay allocation of Oak Lodge library funds to the city of Gladstone. According to the 2008 ballot measure passed by the voters, it's not clear you can do so without input from the Oak Lodge residents on the size, location, and use of Oak Lodge funds for building and operating the new library. I beg the county commission to move forward with fresh leadership. We need to leave behind the recrimination, missteps, and unfortunate comments about residents who question the current library process. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Bernard.
So I have a question. You just suggested that we put it out for a vote, that would take some time, or is it that we should continue the discussion and try to resolve the issue in a way that satisfies most people?
I would think that it might not be necessary to go to a full vote if the residents are involved in the process of planning and feel comfortable enough to okay the plan. But I can't go more further than that.
Well, that's all I want to know. Thank you.
Last week, this board suggested very strongly, and actually made it firm, that we wanted to see a proportionate representation on combining the two library boards so that they can work out detail. And I emphasize the word proportional share. And that means there's various counts, but 70% of the people that will be served by Gladstone don't live in Gladstone. And so we took that very seriously, made that recommendation, and we can put teeth in that as we wish. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Al Scott, oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Savas.
Chair, a lot of people came here tonight to speak to the hearings, and you mentioned that changing it from 3 minutes to 2 minutes. I just maybe ask you to reconsider. There's not that many cards, I believe. We've had public discussion. We invited public discussion, so I was really wondering if we could actually re-entertain allowing the people the 3 minutes. I think they prepared their comments for that time frame, so it seems to be a little bit of a surprise for some of those folks.
Well, when a lot of people show up, it ends up being a surprise. Commissioner Schmidt.
I think our people are very heartfelt and passionate about this issue. And, you know, they're smart. So I think they can tell us in 2 minutes what they want, right? I think you can.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have well over 20 cards here. I have 2 more public hearings, of which were scheduled. This was not scheduled. It's fine that you show up. I appreciate you showing up. Usually on Thursday nights, it's not all that exciting, and it is exciting already tonight. But I have to cut it down to where we have fire service professionals here to testify about a ballot measure. And I appreciate you all coming out tonight, and I encourage you to come at 10 a.m. for the next 3 Thursdays, or come again the following evening, or Thursday, which will be an evening one. But I'm going to stick with 2 minutes unless I'm overruled by the board. Al Scott, Mike Schmier, followed by Renee Hadel and Gary Bukowski. Either one of you can start. Thank you.
Okay, my name's Al Scott, and I reside in Walden Road in Oak Grove. And I'd like to just make a few comments as far as on Measure 3-310, which is in 2008. It indicates as far as for provide funding for our libraries. Although it doesn't take into consideration as far as capital expenditures, and to me, when money is misused, it was for the funding of our library services. And of course, it says allow libraries to make basic repairs, and it says library improvements, which would be a simple improvement, repair type thing. But the city of Gladstone wants the funds to be able to pay for the portion of the building there with this, which would be a new building. If Oak Grove would incorporate it at a later date or whatever, that there would be no benefit to Oak Grove from all the funds going there. There's also, as far as in that section there, it talks about for representation. There's also, in March 2011, an IGA agreement between Clackamas County and the city of Gladstone. It says, Library Board representation. The city shall provide fair representation of served patrons in the city's library board, including patrons from unincorporated Clackamas County. I looked on the city's library and their website. Every one of them are residents of Gladstone. I know, John, you mentioned that. Also, back in the Measure 3-310, it talks about the library district should be governed by the Board of County Commissioners and advised by an independent citizens committee representing each library in the district. In Oak Grove, I believe the last lady that testified had 3 representatives. And there's lots of shortcoming, and when everything is being rushed so quick here, and Oak Grove has not had the proper representation, it hurts the citizens here. And the citizens demand, as far as representation, you are our commissioners, you're our board, you're our ears, and we ask you to hear us today. And I thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name's my name's Mike Schmier. I live on Oakfield Road. My family's been in Oak Grove since 1946, and I've personally lived in Oak Grove for the last 45 years. I confess that I've not closely followed the course of the library issue over the last 8 years, and my only excuse is that I've been enjoying my retirement from PGE. However, when I became aware of the details about how we have arrived where we are with the library, I have found them to be very disturbing. It has become very apparent to me that a series of missteps have taken place since the voters first passed Ballot Measure 3-310 in 2008, which have caused the letter intent of the voters' approval to drift far and away from the measure's intent. At the very least, some of these missteps are unethical and inconsistent with the original intent. And should the City of Gladstone's current plan be implemented, I might even go so far as to say that it is illegal. The list of missteps is long, and the reasons to continue this course are few. The current plan for the city of Gladstone to build what will be an insufficient library on Portland Avenue is highly flawed, if not illegal, and the process that got us to this point happened without proper representation from unincorporated Clackamas County. The citizens of Oak Lodge have been disenfranchised by the process and the city of Gladstone. The proposed plan is tantamount to taxation without representation, and the citizens of Oak Lodge are getting a raw deal. I urge the BCC to seriously consider County Council's advice to you in its memorandum dated July 2nd, 2014, in which you were advised to not endorse Gladstone's approach. I further urge the BCC to put a halt to the current proposed course of action by declaring a material breach of the IGA by the City of Gladstone due to a violation of the Library District's restrictions on the use of funds and a significant change in the Gladstone Library location, design, and financing. Lastly, I propose that the BCC oversee the formation of a properly proportioned Library District Advisory Committee, proportioned by population. Thank you.
Mike, we think we received your correspondence too. Thank you. All right. So it is Renee Hadel and Gary Bukowski.
Hello, my name is Renee Hadel. I live in the community of Oak Grove. I also teach in that community. And I come on behalf of the children, for one.
You're going to have to bring your mouth closer to that,
Okay,
I think.
got it.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I can hear myself now. Okay, so I come on behalf of the children that need books. I also come on behalf of the elderly people that need access to a library. And I'm just going to thank you because so much has already been said, but I want you to consider all the residents when making the decisions about access to a library. Thank you.
Thank you. Hands? Come on now. Thank you. There, that's better. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Gary Bukowski. I live in the unincorporated portion of Clackamas County that's been assigned to the Gladstone service area, the one of 8,600 or so people. I wanted to maybe rehash a little bit of one of the comments that were, a couple of the comments that were made earlier, but I wanted to point out that Gladstone currently does not have any unincorporated representation in their library board. I attended the Gladstone Library Board for over a year back around 2012 as a liaison between the County Library Board and Gladstone when we mistakenly assumed that the two boards were going to be combined back then. But at that point and since then, I'm aware of only one person, now I could be incorrect on this, but only one person on the Gladstone Library Board who was from the unincorporated area being served. Now, if that's true, I think, well, proportionately, the unincorporated part of the service area is 42% of the entire service area, and that would require at least two people from the unincorporated area at all times or on average on that library board, and I only know of one in the time I've been associated with this, and this goes back better than 5 years. So going from that to the fact that in 2011, Gladstone signed a IGA with the county for a receipt of $1 million for capital expenditures towards the library project. There were only 4 requirements of Gladstone in that IGA. One was to receive the money, pretty easy. 2 was that the money could only be spent on capital expenditures regarding a library. 3, they had to be available and open to auditing or monitoring of how they spent the money, which I don't think ever occurred. The 4th was the provision.
Go ahead.
The provision for representation on the library board to be fair. And to me, they've violated the IGA right there because they haven't done that. So past being prologue to the future, I think you can say any deal struck with Gladstone now, you can expect the same thing. Who's going to monitor what's happening going forward if this combined library district or service area is set up. Who's going to monitor who's spending what money, whose money? Is there any way to do that?
Yes.
It hasn't been done so far.
Well, we're working on that. I think I'll read you something later about that, but you heard what I said earlier.
Right.
We ordered that, the word was in there. You're right. The word proportionality. And it hasn't been proportionate. We acknowledge that, and we're going to do something about it. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you. And some hands? Yeah. All right. I'm sorry I didn't call you up with evidently your wife, so I apologize on that. Deborah Bukowski and Jan Carruthers, followed by Grover Jeffrey Bornefeld and Doug Jones.
I'll try not to be too repetitive of what everybody else has said, but I want to remind people that
What's your name, please, ma'am?
Oh, I'm sorry, Deborah Bukowski. That there was, in fact, a joint unincorporated Gladstone group that did come up with a plan for the library on Webster Road in the nature park. And there was massive amounts of public input, lots of meetings held around the area. So there was plenty of time for public input. We spent $1 million on that plan. And then Gladstone decided that given that we were spending, or there would be more than $1 million spent on a library, that people needed to be able to vote on that. But the people that needed to vote on that were only the people in Gladstone. And as we know, the vast majority of taxpayers that are paying into this library district do not live in Gladstone, could not vote on that measure. And I challenge other people to say, when you go to the voters pamphlet, do you look around for other cities and areas where you can't vote? No, you don't. And so the citizens in the unincorporated area are just now starting to figure out what was been going on because they've been unaware. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Jan Carruthers. I live in Jennings Lodge, part of the Oak Grove unincorporated area. I'm an active library user, and I have watched the process and the possibilities that were involved with the Webster project, following Deborah here. And when that project was scuttled, and by a relatively small number of voters, I began to watch what was happening with our own library. And what we were was essentially put on hold, in effect in a kind of betrothed and an arranged marriage that we did not get asked about. So once what we were accepting with a large to almost 20,000 square foot library, we are waiting. What happened is that we have not been able to even spend the operation money in Oak Grove. We've been put on hold even so far as to present opportunities for exploring our own area with market research, polling, and have been turned down by the county that we could not spend that money because we're saving it for Gladstone. So this is a challenge the only good thing about this is we've saved a lot of money. And now we have lots of options that we could do with our $1.2 million to $1.5 million every year, plus $1.6 million that we've saved. That's money that has lots of options available. We did not create that agreement. That, in fact, allows for money to be spent against the voters' wishes. That's your entanglement to unentangle. We are willing to look into all kinds of options. However, we want it to be done according to the goals of the mandate that we voted for, not by a few people in a city that has so far, for 7 years, refused to provide the services that they were mandated to serve.
Thank you. Oh, yeah. All right. Grover Jeffrey Bornefeld and Doug Jones, followed by Terry Gibson and Kevin Johnson. Either one of you.
Hi, my name is Grover Jeffrey Bornefeld, and I've lived in Jennings Lodge for 25 years. And I appreciate, I'd like to have the attention of I really do appreciate
I'm
that
writing
you,
down your name, so I apologize.
Okay. I appreciate that you all have a lot on your plate. And I know you have a lot of issues to deal with. And I also want to recognize that you are our elected representatives. We don't have any others. And I know that some of you don't like it that way. And, you know, until we can actually move a whole lot of people to a different opinion, that's what we got. But in the meantime, you still are our elected officials. And my request is very specific. I want the Board of County Commissioners as our representatives only to enter into agreements which fully honor the vote of the people, and specifically as the governing board of the library district discontinue activities enabling and abdicating for library district funds to be spent or encumbered for other than their voter-approved library purposes. And I did a little research, and you know, this measure that we voted on, well, it's authorized by Oregon Statutes 357.525, which says specifically this ballot has to say how the money will be spent. This says how it'll be spent, and it says it will be spent entirely for exclusively funding library services. It is all the money shall be spent on operations and services, et cetera, et cetera. It says it 7 times in here. Clearly, there's not a word about capital expenditure. So that's piece 1. Piece 2, the IGAs from the first one began to not honor. There was a change in how the Library District Advisory Committee would be selected. It is clearly spelled out in here. I'm not going to read it because I only have a few seconds.
Go ahead.
You need to honor what the voters voted for. You need to be the representative, and you cannot enter into a failed agreement with Gladstone, who did not do what that agreement says. So switching out Webster for Portland Avenue is not a tit-for-tat arrangement. They did not meet the requirements to satisfy 41,000 people. The city of Milwaukee has 41,000 people, and they're going to double their library size. Their library right now is the size that's being proposed by Gladstone. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Yeah, that's okay. We figured that.
My name is Doug Jones. I've lived in Oak Grove with my wife and my 2 sons for 17 years. I also worked as a librarian for Clackamas County for 20 years. During that time, I was fortunate to see several libraries expand to become a vital part of their communities. I'm going to try and cut that short because I know a lot of what's been said has been said, but my perspective is a bit unique because I've had the opportunity to see so much happen. I got my start at the Oak Lodge Library when it was growing, it was thriving. We had a full staff, we had a great budget for new materials, and it was a wonderful thing to see that right there in that community. We went and took the small library that was inside Clackamas Town Center, moved it to the corner of the parking lot, and it was, in just a short amount of time, it became bustling almost immediately. We took the library that was in a community center up in Hoodland, moved it into its own location. Same thing. Anytime we've had a library moved into the center of its community, the community responds overwhelmingly and truly appreciates that. In 2012, when we moved the library from Clackamas Corner to Sunnyside, Happy Valley area, serving Happy Valley, Clackamas, Damascus, the facility was beautiful, and the community responded accordingly. And it continues to flourish there for all those people. And I remember when that opened, it was heartwarming and I was overwhelmed. But one of the deep thoughts I had at the same time, because this is right when the Gladstone group was starting to oppose the construction of their new library on Webster and Oatfield, and I felt, gosh, if the people of Gladstone could just come and walk through, do a quick little tour of our beautiful new Sunnyside library and say, wow, wouldn't this be great to have something like this in our community? I can't imagine they wouldn't have welcomed their new facility wholeheartedly. they would have considered it a great investment in the future of their city. Instead, they did not. And to me, I hope that the residents of Gladstone get a new library. I really do. Every community deserves one, and they're long overdue themselves. But they've demonstrated they're only interested in a library just for their community. And the size of the library they're talking about and the location of it is not going to be adequate to serve the community I live in and the community I've seen not getting the library services that they deserve. Thank you for your time.
Commissioner Savas.
Well, thank you for coming up. I do want to just address a couple of things here. As Mrs. Shirk said earlier, we need to build public trust. That's one of our goals in the county. And we are going to talk later about a road fee and talk about what we're going to do with those monies. And this is something that I became aware of just a few weeks ago. Mr. Bornefeld, you brought that forward, and it's come as a surprise to me. We were under the impression that this was a pass-through district. Monies would pass through. There was no role. There was no services provided by the district itself. Those monies were being dispersed, and I've learned a lot, and I appreciate you bringing that forward. And this is somewhat messed up. We realize that, and I don't know what we're going to do or what solution we'll find, but we need to rectify it one way or another. But I think the part that is compelling is what the body of the language says in the ballot measure, and going forward, every ballot measure that's ever passed, and every ballot measure we put on the ballot from here forward, I think we have a responsibility to honor that, and I think that's a fundamental responsibility we have, as difficult as that may be. So again, I appreciate you bringing that forward and providing the information and your service on the advisory board and your service on the advisory board as well, and others who serve on the boards as well. Didn't know we had 3 committees involved in this, so I've learned a lot already. It's kind of embarrassing for all of us.
Thanks for
Commissioner Schrader.
maintaining our trust.
I just wanted to thank you. Many of you know I'm a librarian, and I worked at Mount Angel Abbey Library as an administrative librarian, which is probably one of the best libraries in the Northwest. And I was a school librarian at King Elementary for a K-6 spread. And my master's degree, they didn't offer an MLA program here, or an MLS program, but I did do my education degree with the emphasis in library media. And I was heartsick when the Webster Road plan fell through, because I think that it was a good plan. I think it incorporated park areas as well as the correct size for the library that was meant to be served. And I have always believed that that process was hijacked. I am not personally as worried about, no, it was hijacked. Thank you, it was hijacked. And I've gotten a little bit in trouble with the folks that hijacked it, because I pretty much
Called them un-American.
called them un-American, because I think libraries are the bedrock of democracy. So that's about as harsh as I get, and many of you know I'm not particularly a harsh person, but that really was upsetting to me. I'm not as worried about the technicalities of the capital construction. My attitude is if you can get a library and there's money there to do it, and you can figure out a way to build it. So that doesn't disturb me as much. What disturbs me now, and I worry about, is that the capacity of what our city of Gladstone wants to do will not be able to meet the capacity of and size and scale of the population it was meant to serve. So that is a real concern to me as a librarian. So the other point, though, is that libraries are the heart of the community, and certainly a library in downtown Gladstone to probably help that community out. I don't know what the solution is, but I was the one that suggested that maybe we ought this, and this is the only city unincorporated area piece of this that has failed. I will tell you that this model has worked beautifully throughout the entire county, and is this one area that just has not been able to seem to pull this forward. Canby's building a new library now, and they've expanded. Lake Oswego's always been there. Malala's done a great job. Estacada has been one of the best libraries in the system as well. When you look at it, this concept has actually worked. Sandy did what I'm thinking might be the only solution, And that is that they do have a library in their city, but they have a satellite. And I have the picture here that Concord. And I don't know how we would ever make this happen or what the money would be for that. No, and thank you for clapping, but I want to just say I'm not trying to put my colleagues on the spot, okay? Because every person on this board with me is pro-library, okay? So I'm not really trying to grandstand here. I'm just trying to problem solve. And what I would really like to see as a solution is the potential of can we think outside of the box and somehow just make it good for everybody? Because when the Webster site went down, truly, I just thought we were going to go down a road to perdition. So thank you for that. And as I said, every commissioner on this podium believes in libraries and believes in access to libraries. So again, I don't want to grandstand, but I do feel that in this sense, some of the leadership in Gladstone was led astray. And we didn't really need to be in this situation at this point in time. So thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Terry Gibson, Kevin Johnson, followed by Thelma Hagenmiller, Mac Woods. Either one of you can start, but somebody should.
Thank you. I'm Terry Gibson. I'm a 25-year resident of Jennings Lodge, and I'm president of the Oak Lodge Sanitary District. I normally represent most of the people in this room in a completely different capacity, but the ire of the community has been brought to my attention, and so I've been compelled to come speak tonight about the library issue. So I hope that you will listen to the testimony carefully. I'm encouraged by some of the comments by some of the commissioners this evening so that they realize that some of the missteps have been made and that you seem to be committed to change some of those. So as has been pointed out, there are many paths to solutions to this problem, including special districts, as you know, come in a variety of packages which can solve a lot of problems. So I'm going to keep my testimony brief because we do have a lot of other people this evening that would like to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Yes,
So I might be the only Gladstone one here. Do I get my full 3 minutes before they tar and feather me?
Well, they need a full minute to tar and feather, so I guess, you know.
Kevin Johnson, Gladstone. I thought this library issue was over on July 8th, 2014. Gladstone was moving forward in the direction given by this board to build a new library to serve its citizens and the residents of Oak Lodge. A year and a half later, here we are again. After listening to 4 BCC study sessions this year, reading articles in the review, and attending a meeting in Oak Grove last week, these are my comments. At the meeting last week, there was about 25 Oak Lodge residents. They're upset their library is going to close and they will have to travel to Gladstone for service. The Gladstone Library Plan from 2011 was described as 19,000 square foot building in a nature park, a destination library. This plan had Gladstone taxpayers paying 80% of the capital cost, but only made up 25% of the patrons. When I asked if they would be happy if this facility had been built, half said no. So they don't pay their share of the destination library in a nature park with a view of Mount Hood and an alcohol-fueled fireplace to read by. They were still not going to be happy. The fact is, many will never be happy no matter what if their library closes. Closing their library was Commissioner Schrader and 2 other commissioners' plan in 2008. This plan that gave Happy Valley a $6.8 million library for free from county general library funds. But the people in Gladstone, the people in charge at Gladstone at the time, spent 80% of the city's urban renewal money for the next 20 years on a library mostly for non-residents. There was a revolt in Gladstone by un-Americans, in Martha Schrader's words. She still thinks Gladstone taxpayers should have been happy to supply Oak Lodge with a new library. The current plan uses library district funds for construction, a plan that was approved by all 5 of you in July of 2014 and means all patrons pay the same. There's been a lot of talks about proportional representation, but proportional is not in the ballot measure. So if you're going to go by the ballot measure, you probably should go by all of it.
Proportional is in the IGA, ladies and gentlemen.
IGA not in the measure.
Thank you. Well, the IGA is a contract, that's what we exist by. So, it is Thelma Hagen-Miller, Mac Woods, followed by Les Poole and Jan Lindstrom.
I'm not used to that, you know.
Yes, thank you. Do you want some?
Me?
Yeah, Jim.
Oh, here. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Well, somebody's got to start.
Ladies first, where I came from.
What's that?
Ladies first, where I came from.
You're such a gentleman. Is that because you're a Navy man?
Mac,
Yeah.
thanks. Come down. Good evening, Chair Ludlow and Commissioners. My name is Thelma Hagen-Miller. I reside in the Oak Grove area of unincorporated Clackamas County. Unlike most of the people in the audience tonight, I am not here to speak to you about libraries, roads, marijuana, or emergency communications. I am here to address the issue of incorporation. It is a matter of fact that approximately 1/2 of the population of Clackamas County, by choice, lives in the unincorporated area of the county. Furthermore, 1/2 of the people in that unincorporated area reside, again, by choice in the large, urban, densely populated North Clackamas area. These two facts you knew before you knowingly, willingly, and by your own choice decided to run for and were duly elected to the position of county commissioner. In assuming the position of county commissioner, you also accepted the responsibility and the challenge for being the decision-making governing body over all of that unincorporated area, both rural and urban. I listen to some of you regularly and publicly express your personal opinion that you think the people residing in the North County area that you are currently responsible for governing should become a city. It would certainly remove that governing challenge from your job. However, as a voting member and a resident of that particularly feisty, densely populated, urbanized, unincorporated area, I am personally tired of listening to you publicly whine, and that's the way it comes across, about the challenge we present. Get off your incorporation bandwagon, suck it up, and do the job you knowingly and willingly signed up for. Thank you.
Well, if only they'd give us revenue sharing, which they do not, like they do other cities, I don't know. We'd build those sidewalks, we'd build the libraries, we'd build it all. Thank you. Mac.
Commissioner Ludlow and Clackamas County Commissioners. I am MacArthur Woods. I live in Canby. So soon we forget, with the exception of the good job, the people that does these videos that gives us the memory to hold accountable people that forget what they say and what they do. So I want to compliment them for the job well done. And these do not misinterpret, get it mixed up, what they say. I kind of started bowing out for coming to a lot of these commissions meetings because you can get fed up with it. And here we're coming into a new election, and we're going to vote. It's that time. Guess what? People are starting to learn by listening to these on the news, on TV, and it tells the truth. But I have an index, a big file cabinet full of these that I've purchased. And I hope it wouldn't surprise you to realize some of the legal matters that takes place, they may not go by the law as the law allows. I learned how to read. I go to the library, lead the library. And you can pull up the laws, and there's such things as called in the law theft by deception. Guess what? I'm not dumb. I got records that's going to prove. Some of you know, and I many times, out of respect, won't give out the names of any of you that brought up my name individually. I have the facts, I have the records. We're going to have fun. And somebody's going to be held accountable. As you know, my case was dismissed, my ethics complaint. We got the facts. We'll tell you the rest of the story soon. You might hear it on the news. Have a good day. Thank you.
Les Poole and Jan Lindstrom, followed by Nancy Gibson and Steve Shop.
Hi, thank you. My name is Jan Lindstrom. I'll get started. I'm a new resident of the Oak Grove area, and I was rather shocked to arrive here and drive down the street and see that the local library had a hand-lettered library sign in the window, and to stop inside of it and find that it was very limited in scope to what I was used to for a local library. Also come to find out that my local passionate neighbors told me that it was at risk of being closed. I immediately went today and signed up to volunteer. I just want to offer my support as a volunteer for the library system here, and to say I worked as a bookseller, as an event manager for Barnes & Noble Booksellers for 17 years. I moved here to write a novel. I'm passionate about children and literacy and literature, and I think it's the only hope we have to reduce violence, to keep kids off the streets, to open people's hearts to other cultures when people are coming here from other countries. And also, in terms of access, I applaud everyone who spoke today, and especially the teacher who came in support of children and the elderly, of which there are a lot in this community who will not go to a library too far away from them. You know, they're walking, they're taking a bus, they're being dropped off by caregivers and picked up by parents who are overwhelmed with multiple jobs. Local library services are essential to a community, and I will do anything as far as a local resident to volunteer and give my passion to keeping local library services here, and I thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Les Poole, 20 years in Oak Grove, 3 years in Gladstone. And yes, Thelma Hagen-Miller is my hero. I'll try and be very brief. As you can imagine, there's a lot on my mind and a lot on people's minds. What you're seeing here is kind of going on everywhere. And when I hear about money being misspent, I invite you to take a visit to Salem if you want to see some money misspent. Unbelievable what's going on down there. I was here last week, and a lady spoke. There was a tribute to the vets. She was in tears up here, ready to attend a funeral of another local vet that committed suicide. And the next day, I visited Peggy Boquist in Salem, and the following day, she found out her son committed suicide, and Peggy is the wife of Senator Brian Boquist. And when I think about some of the battles we've had going on in the community, you have to put that in perspective. First time Les Poole's been at a loss for words in a long time. I noticed there's a lot of confusion about the library, and as someone that's really, really concerned about sorting things out, I'm hearing a variety of legal opinions, and even though sometimes this feels like a courtroom, it's really not one, and there's a point where I can't be a lawyer any more than you can. Luckily, Mr. Storey gets that job. Mac held up a video, and interestingly, it looked like the April 16th video from last year. And that's where I came in, and you talk about trust. I came in and just for the public record, made it clear that when it was all over, Commissioner Bernard received $273,000 settlement from TriMet after claiming for so long he wasn't affected by the light rail property location. That's not something we're going to revisit over and over again, But the issues with trust in this community started with the light rail fiasco, and we need answers, and we need to vote on everything that we can within reason. My time is up, but thank you for what you're doing on the roads. More to come on that. More to come on that. Thank you.
Nancy Gibson and Steve Shop.
Get it so you can.
All right.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. So my name's Nancy Gibson. Many people here know me. I'm also a water commissioner for the Oak Lodge Water District. So I, too, represent many of the people in this room as an elected, just like you are. And as electeds, we all know that intergovernmental agreements are something that come up to us all the time. And I'd like to remind the commissioners that intergovernmental agreements can be renegotiated. And so as you listen to all the testimony that has been given to you tonight, which has been considerable and has been thought out and given to you with a tremendous amount of grace, this community really needs you right now to make sure that we are being adequately represented and that the tax monies that are being collected from this community are being spent in the manner to which the voters approve them. If that is not going to be the case, then we need to know so that as a community, we can then explore other ways that we can provide the much needed library services for our community in a manner that works for our community for now and into the future.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Steve Shop. I've been here before. I know you all, and everybody wants good things. Certainly the people that like libraries want their libraries. But the county is full of people who want a lot of things, like everywhere else in the state. A state that many people would say is maybe hasn't been run too well. But here in Clackamas County, I honestly think that Clackamas County has more potential than any county in the state. When you look across at what Clackamas County actually is, it's amazing. The answer is simple to the libraries and every other thing in turmoil that will be stuck in turmoil unless you address it. You need to have prosperity. Prosperity floats everyone's boats. And Clackamas County has so many advantages and potential to deliver prosperity that it should be taking advantage of them. Now, obviously, there's a lot of disagreements between the commissioners, and politics are forever infecting it all like a parasite. But let's get real, folks. The very basics you should be able to agree upon. And I'm leading up to my topic here, which is prosperity can be delivered with land and loosen the constraints upon it. And it's not just some people in the commission here, across the region, and you've been informed of this over and over again in Metro too, across the region. All the groups of businesses and interests recognize that Metro is simply wrong. How wrong are they? We're all familiar with what happened in Damascus when in 2002, Metro expanded the urban growth boundary by 10,000 acres. Do you know why they did that? Or according to Oregonian reporter Dina Timms, Metro Councilor President David Bragdon told me during an interview some years ago that Metro never expected the 10,000 acres of Damascus to work. The council made that move, he said, because it had to satisfy state laws requiring a 20-year supply of buildable land. My point is here, if you can't even acknowledge what Metro has done to the region in Clackamas County, you'll be stuck in perpetual turmoil where nothing will be sufficient. So I urge you to set aside the politics and tell Metro they're wrong, you're right, and stay the course. And don't let them convince you of anything else they have in mind. They don't have prosperity for Clackamas County in mind at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Savas.
I just wanted to comment on Mr. Johnson's words about if we're going to follow the body of the language of the measure on libraries 3-310, that we follow it completely. And I necessarily I don't disagree with that whatsoever, frankly. And I think Mrs. Gibson's comments about the IGA and the IGA can be changed, and talking to some people that are attorneys, you know, which prevails, the body of the language or the IGA. And I think it's relatively known or believed, at least anyhow, from the people I talk to, that it's really the ballot measure is what stands, is what was enacted. And former Justice Scalia was in a comment that he made, I can't quote it verbatim, but basically it was, it's not what was intended, it was what was enacted. And what was enacted is 3-310 and what was inside there. So I think that is our guide right now, unfortunately, in this whole matter. So I appreciate everyone's comments on that, and I think that's really key in this whole thing. And we just got to, again, sort this out, figure out where we're going to go, and what the language means, and look back and make whatever corrections we need to make. And again, I appreciate everyone coming out tonight.
The Board of County Commissioners is committed to facilitating a consensus-driven agreement for construction of a new library that will serve the residents from Gladstone and Oak Lodge. That discussion must include, as I've said, the residents from unincorporated areas as well as Gladstone officials. This past week, as I'd mentioned, the commissioners directed county staff to work with the city of Gladstone to form a, again, proportionally represented committee with the two local advisory committees in Oak Lodge and Gladstone to discuss outstanding issues and reach agreement on library construction. We have an IGA, intergovernmental agreement, as a contract with Gladstone currently. We will monitor the situation closely and are committed to reaching a collaborative solution. I grew up in Oak Grove. They didn't have an Oak Lodge library then. Leading Library was close enough. I used to ride my bike down there. I know it's hard to believe now looking at me, but I rode my bike a lot down there, sometimes walked down there because it was a lovely drive. And back then on Highway 99, the chances were you were not going to be killed. I don't know about that now. But, you know, it's interesting to think about if we did, just this scenario. If we said, Gladstone, we're going to abandon you, and we're going to go to Oak Lodge. Now, we have a library there, but remember one of the promises made in that measure is we will get out of the library business. Now, where would the capital come from to build an Oak Lodge library? There is no capital. And in fact, obviously, since this money is being saved, and it was mentioned before, this money is accumulating in Oak Lodge, and it will, so far, be given to Gladstone to use. Now, again, if it was kept in there and this money is accumulated, because obviously we're not using all the funds that are available for that many people to run that little library that currently exists, a lot of you would say, well, you can't use it for capital. Well, how would we build a library for Oak Lodge? No, you're not going to be able to answer. Thank you. So, you know, there's a lot of questions yet that need to be answered. We've had advice from legal counsel. We will continue working on that. And one of the big bones of contention, the one we must solve soon, is can you use library funds for capital purposes? Now, Oregon City went out for a bond and said, we're going to build a library. And so they're going to go ahead and build a library based on the savings that they have put together, based on the money they get for serving unincorporated as well as their own citizens. So they're bonded for use of that funds for capital. And if you think about a library, and Martha said this before too, a library is what's important. It's the sticks, it's the wall, it's the brick, it's the roof, it's the racks, it's the furniture, it's the books, and it's the people. Really, what we're looking for is a library, then as far as I'm concerned personally, and we'll certainly get into the legalities of it much later, as far as I'm concerned, it's a library. And if that money is needed for capital construction, I personally don't care. Now, there's a legal aspect to this too, and we definitely will approach that. But what my promise to you is that we will work on this hard, diligently with our legal staff. And again, remember what we asked Gladstone to do, and I think we're going to put some teeth in that as necessary. Commissioner Savas wishes to rebuttal me.
Oh,
Maybe not.
actually, I just want to add some information, frankly. So back in, before Measure 50 was passed, Oak Lodge, and I voted for that, we voted for a library levy measure to fund our library. And when Measure 50 came in, it locked that in. In Washington County, they had a levy for roads, And that was something that they had, and Measure 50 came in and locked that in. Washington County went to the legislature and said, you know what, we want to save that money because there was a law. We want to save that money and dedicate that to what we promised the voters. We promised the voters that we were going to build these roads with that measure, with that bond, that levy, and we want to fulfill that, and we want to do it legally. So they got a change, and now they call it MSTIP funding. So they tried to honor what took place when Measure 50 locked that in. Clackamas County took the library money and folded into the general fund. So right now, every dollar you pay, every penny you pay in Clackamas County, embedded in that is the old library levy, which you're paying. And then we pass another one, right? And we hear from the cities all the time that the unincorporated areas don't pay their way, and here we're paying for 2 libraries in Oak Lodge. And that is what the money was basically generated for, that provided the capital that was distributed out to all these libraries. So if there's a means of another city incorporating, or 2 or 3, frankly, what's embedded in our general fund, frankly, is a resource for capital contribution equivalent to what all the other libraries got. And I think that, again, we could have dedicated those funds for library, but instead we just simply folded that into general revenue, scraped it off, and then went to the taxpayers again. And so we're paying twice for those who live in the unincorporated area of Clackamas County, which I do. So I think that there is a resource for any funds should another library have to be built.
Commissioner Bernard.
Well, I think first off, we have to acknowledge that there were missteps. This all occurred before we were here. And, you know, the Gladstone issue, I never knew that a whole lot of people had participated. And some people who are in this room tonight actually, you know, worked with the voters to make sure that library didn't get built, after the community worked really hard to come up with a good solution. But, you know, another thing, a lot of folks brought up some things I never thought of before, and that is that if the Gladstone had to pay for that library and everyone else was using it, there had to have been some way to balance that out. I agree with Martha and John that and I hope we can fix this. The ballot measure does say it's for, you know, basically running a library at a certain standard. But as far as capital, so many people have used it, we've got a problem. I mean, we cannot say to Oregon City, well, you can't use this, you know, to pay for your capital costs. They've already committed that money. Gladstone hasn't yet, though, as far as I know. So I think we have an opportunity here to resolve this now, and we should. I like Martha's thing on the Concord thing. When I visit the one in Portland, the partnership they had, I thought it was fantastic.
Washington High School, yeah.
Yeah, I was really kind of thinking that's where we could go. So I look forward to that discussion, but I don't know how far along that is. We need to bring that back to the commission to figure that out. But, you know, we have a problem, and I'm interested in what legal responsibilities we have, and is there a solution? And I don't know if combining those 2 boards, I mean, I think that's what we need to do. I don't know if they can come up with a resolution. We do need to get out of the library business, and I think there should be a new library or a partnership in a existing building rather than a lease, because that's a leased property right now. So I'd like to see that discussion move forward. And I'm proud to be the mayor and city council of Oak Grove and those unincorporated areas. And we do often complain about, you know, having to do that, I guess. The only reason I've ever thought that was a challenge is that the tax dollars that could be there that don't go there because of that. I also think that, you know, we, in some way, agree with Paul in that we need to look at our general fund money and see if we can find an amount of capital dollars to commit to that library in the Oak Grove, Oak Lodge unincorporated area. And yeah, I don't know if you know, but our tax revenue has gone up a lot. And I'm sure you know, you probably got your tax bill. And that, of course, isn't because we raised taxes, but because the value of property's gone up. And I actually suggested that maybe we shouldn't collect all those taxes, that, you know, we need to make the economy continue to grow. You probably think that's strange for a Democrat, but we should maybe consider not collecting those taxes. But there's another option, and that might be to help fund this library. So I think we should really work to a resolution. I hope we can get a legal opinion that supports another direction. And I look forward to that discussion. I understand we're going to have a work session next week, and Chris Storey has a memorandum and some opportunities that I look forward to discussing on Tuesday.
Commissioner Schmidt.
I want to thank everybody for coming here tonight. There you go. I want to thank everybody for coming here tonight, and I have saved my comments because I wanted to make sure I heard from everybody who wanted to talk about this issue tonight. And I thought the comments were wonderful, and they were very heartfelt, and I agree with most all of them. I can't think of anything that I disagree with tonight. This has been going on for 7, 8, 9 years now, and it's almost embarrassing that every other city in the county who wanted a library has one. And you know, we've talked about Estacada. If you've ever been out to that Estacada library, now that is a community. It's not rich. It was very timber dependent, and they went to their voters and asked for a bond, and the voters voted yes for it, in addition to the money that the library district has given them from their taxes. We just closed out that district in Estacada last week. They have a brand new library that's one of the most beautiful libraries I've ever seen, and it's done and it's paid for. And look what they did by cooperating with their neighbors and agreeing to get something done. And frankly, I have trouble seeing that with the contentions going on here. It almost is as if the commissioners are going to have to make a decision, and I'm willing to do that. But, you know, it will make one person happy, the next person will be angry. So we're pretty much in a no-win situation. I'm not going to come out and say tonight what I think should be done. Many commissioners have, and frankly, I'm not willing to make a promise that I know I can't keep. I don't think it's possible to use much general fund in this. It just isn't there. And a promise to do so, I think, is irresponsible, to be honest with you. You just can't say, oh, I think you guys should get this because you want it. We're going to look at all the options. I'm going to study it. We're going to listen to our legal counsel. We're going to listen to everything. We're going to consider every single idea. And believe me, you have been heard. We're going to try to be proportional. We're going to try to be equitable. I do think we need a library in Oak Grove, and I think Gladstone should reach out to the folks there and try to make it happen. Because let's face it, Gladstone has some major problems. When they burned through $1 million on architecture with not a thing to show for it, and that makes me the angriest. And we will deal with that. Believe me, that has not gone unnoticed by this board. That's one thing I can say that we will do. We were going to figure out the equity on basically losing $1 million of library funds. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've made an impact tonight, and we really appreciate you showing up. We've seen crowds like this before, but usually it was about pot. And thank you for showing up. I think only one person mentioned it. Thank you for that. But you do make an impact, and in a sense, we are your mayor and council. You can call us that. We have such broad responsibilities, though, and so many hats to wear. But it does make a difference when people show up, especially with the passion that was displayed tonight. We appreciate you coming. I'm going to recess for a couple minutes because I got a feeling a lot of you would like to go home. So we're going to recess for just a couple minutes, so commissioners don't disappear. We'll reconvene in just a moment. Well, now I'm talking to Martha. Hey, we're back in the session here. You caught me, huh, Alice?
Yeah, and I'm paying your wages over there.
Oh, jeez. As Alice Richmond, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to contact her, she's in Westland. She knows half the people in the room. Yeah, are we done, Alice? Yeah. Thank you. No, Alice. We got some other people to testify as well. We're done with citizen communication, and now we're going to get to a public hearing. Mr. Krupp.
Yes, Mr. Chair, this is a public hearing to consider a board order
to approve the referral of a question to the voters in May of 2016 for general obligation bonds to replace and upgrade the C800 emergency radio system and necessary components. And I'm going to ask Laurel Butman, our Deputy County Administrator, and Mr. Chris Storey from the County Counsel's Office to share information about this request to you.
Thanks, Don. Good evening, Commissioners. Back here again on this. So the county has been asked, or you have been asked, by the Board of Directors of C800, which is an ORS 190 organization that provides emergency radio communications in Clackamas County, to place a measure on the May 2016 ballot, as Don said, on behalf of them, for voters, asking voters to approve a countywide general obligation bond levy to finance the replacement of the emergency radio communications system. The proposed debt issuance would total approximately $59 million, and the bond issuance would last 15 years, not more than 16, and that comes out to about $26.25 a year for a home of the average assessed value, or about a little over $2 a month for the voters. In order to replace the current system with the needed infrastructure and modernized radios, C800 has been working with the Washington County Consolidated Communications Agency, which jointly owns the whole system and operates it. And that Washington County is putting a similar measure on the ballot at the same time that we're asking that you do the same on behalf of that communications agency. So at this point, I would like to let you know that staff is respectfully recommending that the board adopt the board order before you tonight with the ballot language provided in Attachment A. And if you have questions.
Commissioners, any questions to the presenter? All right. We're going to open the public hearing, and I do have some cards up here. You will have 3 minutes. A lot shorter stack. And we'll start with Chief Fred Charlton and Bob Causey. And they will be followed by Jim Davis, Brett Smith.
Well, thank you. I promise I won't take my 3 minutes because I started scaling back my comments about an hour ago. So anyway, good evening, Chair Ludlow and Clackamas County Commissioners. My name is Fred Charlton, Fire Chief with Clackamas Fire District Number 1, and we're a member agency of C800. Thank you for allowing our first responders to share comments tonight regarding the need to replace the emergency radio system within Clackamas County. When you call 911 for police, fire, and/or emergency medical response, you have an expectation that the emergency response system will work without fail. One of the most critical components of that system is communication. Within Clackamas County, we have a seamless process to deploy resources across the region. This could be for a significant wildfire, flood event, building fire, serious motor vehicle crash, mass casualty incident, or medical emergency. Police, fire, and EMS personnel are interdependent on one another, and it begins with reliable communication. If you live, work, recreate, or travel across Clackamas County, our agencies want to ensure there is safe, reliable, and fast response to your calls for help. Chair Ludlow, members of the Commission, we sincerely appreciate your support to help our first responders meet the needs of our community through replacing the current emergency radio system. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Causey?
Good evening. I'm Bob Causey. I'm the Director of Clackamas County 911. Thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening. When the public calls 911 for help, Clackamas County's emergency communications system is used to dispatch the first responders countywide. The emergency communications system is comprised of radio equipment, towers, buildings, radios, as well as other technology. The system allows first responders to coordinate, request backup, and get aid to victims. 20 different public safety agencies use the existing system, including the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office and Clackamas County Fire District Number 1. Communications equipment in the system is reaching the end of serviceable life, and the buildings and towers need to be strengthened for earthquakes and other hazards. There have been changes in emergency communications technology and a growing demand for emergency services in our county, and there's a need to improve reliability during major disasters. Voter-approved bonds would pay for $59 million in capital costs for the public safety radio system by converting the existing system to current technology, improving coverage countywide by installing more towers, and strengthening facilities for earthquakes, heavy storms, or other emergencies. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Commissioner Bernard.
Oh, I think it was, excuse me. I think it was nice of you to have described reaching the end of its life. Isn't it true that in order to buy parts, you have to go online and buy from eBay?
That is correct.
And in order to fix your radios, you have to buy those parts or steal them from other radios?
The technicians at Washington County Consolidated Communications Agency operate the radio system, and they're always on the lookout for replacement parts, and they do have to get them sometimes through eBay.
Well, usually that's described as its end of life. So reaching, I think that's key. They don't manufacture this phone or these pieces anymore. You have to hope some guy finds them in the drawer in his garage and puts it on eBay to sell. I think that's a big problem. I mean, you know, with the Model T cars, you can find parts for because people are manufacturing them again. But these little parts for these little systems probably don't return much profit if you have to manufacture them again. So I think that's key why this is so important. Also, my understanding is there would be a tower up near Mount Hood, right?
Yeah, the expanded coverage will include the area of Lolo Pass, which right now doesn't have any radio coverage through the 800 megahertz system.
Yeah, so when people are lost on Mount Hood, which we had a number of over the years and died up on Mount Hood, this would improve radio service up on that side of the mountain.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Commissioner Schmidt.
Yeah, and just to be clear on what the upgrades are, we're converting from analog to digital. And I don't know many analog systems, including cell phones or your landlines, that are still available. So it is really an obsolete system. And I'm reading here from the packet is the average household is $26.25 a year to ensure that you have, when you call 911, that you have a response in a timely manner. And, you know, people, when you need 911, you want it and you want it now. I had a situation this fall where my mother did fall and break her hip and her arm, and you know the ambulance came in a short amount of time. But when you're sitting there waiting for it, and a person is in pain or distress, it seems like it's forever, and you want that taken care of. In Clackamas County, we have a large amount of retirees, and people like to move to Clackamas County to retire. So I just encourage the folks listening out there, think really hard on if you want the system to continue. If it fails, I really don't know what we're going to do because Washington County is going to go ahead with it. Multnomah County already has it. And then here comes Clackamas County. Well, we're just kind of in our obsolete system, not being able to receive calls. So I don't like the $58 million bond. I think it's a huge amount of money. But from what I understand, I asked a lot of questions on this. Because I was afraid that once this bond was paid off, well, we'd be looking at another obsolete system. But I understand upgrades are a part of this. Towers are a part of this. Even some land is a part of this. So as we move forward with this bond, we're able to keep up the current and more modern technologies. That's all I can say because I don't completely understand it. But this was a very hard decision for me. To approve this to the voters because they're going to think long and hard about whether they want to have another tax, and Clackamas County has not been friendly to taxes. So good luck as you move forward.
Commissioner Savas.
Well, I won't repeat everything that's been said, but I have a couple of questions that maybe you don't have to answer tonight, but I'm sure there's going to be some information. But some questions that I've gotten is, for example, is that as I tell them, it's not the county that's doing it. We're actually putting this on the ballot, but the money is a pass-through. So where can I tell, what public body can I send people to learn about C800? And I'm sure that'll be in the literature somewhere, but is there anything near-term we can to to connect people? Do you want to cite that right now if you can, if you have that? If not, then maybe we need to post that and make that public. I was hoping we could do that.
I can actually answer that. There's a website, c800.org, that folks can go to right now. People who are here tonight, there's a flyer outside the door, and it's got a phone number to call, and it's got the website on it as well.
Okay, great.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right, it is Jim Davis, Brett Smith, followed by James Rhodes and Rod Yoder.
Chairman Ludlow, Jim Davis, Fire Chief, Canby Fire District, and thank you, first of all, for what you do after listening to the testimony earlier, but thank you for taking the time to do what you do. And also thank you very much for considering the public safety 800 megahertz radio system as far as putting this out to a vote to the citizens. Quick introduction for you. Canby Fire District is, right around 54 square miles. We have 2 fire stations. We serve the city of Barlow as well. What's unique about Canby Fire District is we also provide an ASA for ambulance service for the Canby Fire District, and we back up Molalla, so the Molalla Fire District as well as the Canby Fire District. We provide automatic aid, mutual aid into the Aurora Fire District as far as automatic aid. We also provide our ASA goes up to the county line to Marion County as well. And so our ambulance service also goes out to that area next to Marion County, the Monitor Fire District as well. The radio system will improve coverage in the Canby, Molalla basin. I can cite numerous buildings in the Canby area where our firefighters cannot get out for communications. There were 2 situations, one where I was involved as the incident commander. One was at Fred Meyer's, where we had a small incident at Fred Meyer's. Firefighters wondered why they weren't talking to me. It was because they couldn't get out of that building, which means then that they can't talk or listen to our dispatchers, and that presents a safety issue for our firefighters. The second was a fire in between Molalla and Canby at a house fire. And I had to literally move my command vehicle to a point to where CCOM could actually hear me. And they could not hear the firefighters at all. So that meant we had to put our firefighters on a simplex channel. And they could talk to me, but again, the dispatchers could not hear the firefighters, which again presents a safety issue. The Canby Police Department, the brand new police station in Canby was an area where they had to put in a repeater because of lack of coverage there as well. As I stated earlier, Canby Fire District covers the ASA out and abuts into Monitor and the Aurora Fire District, and we provide mutual aid into that area as well as Molalla, Clackamas County Fire District 1. And I can tell you that this radio system, what's planned anyway, is that they will be installing a repeater, a site in the Canby area, which will cover that Molalla basin. So it's extremely important to the Molalla Fire District as well as the Canby Fire District. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. My name is Brett Smith. I'm the Chief of Police for the City of Canby. And I thank you for the opportunity here to talk to you a little bit. I'm going to talk a little bit differently, not so much about the system, but one of the important pieces that I think that we wanted to talk about tonight is the C-Hunter Board has an overall responsibility to ensure that the bond program is implemented within the parameters of the law and the needs and meets the commitments made to the community and the voters. I think after sitting here at the last meeting and just talking and listening, I should say, to the people's concerns about how we're following the intent and or the agreements that are out there. With that said, I think the C-Hunter Board of Directors' intent is to establish a Citizen Accountability Committee that will help us assist in monitoring the progress and execution of this bond program if it passes. It's an important component of that for success. As we begin, as I've heard, building and or maintaining trust, public trust, and honor the bond measure as it's intended to go forward. The committee would confirm that the bond revenues are used only for the purposes consistent with the voter-approved bond measure ballot and consistent with state law. And the committee will review quarterly reports produced by C800. Each year, the bond proceeds as being part in order to assess the general compliance that has been designated. And I think that's going to be really important when communicating key information that's related to the stakeholders in this particular bond. So with that said, I think it's really important that you know that that's an important component or piece for us. It adds to the transparency, the accountability, the budget oversight, and just the general intent of what we're trying to accomplish, and that we're meeting the needs out there from a public safety perspective.
Thank you.
Chief Davis.
Yes.
You know, they call it the Canby Fire District, but it is much larger than Canby, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
So your district includes unincorporated at Clackamas County, correct?
Correct.
And you have reciprocity agreements with other fire districts, correct?
Yes, we do.
In fact, I think that Tualatin Fire Protection District, they actually have Charbonneau, for an example. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And I know you've answered those calls because sometimes I-5 is a real bear to cross that bridge, correct?
Yes.
But my emphasis is here, you know, here's an entity that serves a large area, although they call it the Canby Fire District. The district is very much larger than the city, correct?
That's correct.
All right, thank you. All right, James Rhodes, Rod Yoder, followed by Eugene Schoenheit and John Klur.
Good evening.
We don't see you up here very much, James.
No, sir. Good evening, Chair Ludlow, Commissioners. Thank you for your time. My name is James Rhodes. I'm a captain with the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office. I'm also vice chair for the C100 Executive Board. I'm here to thank you tonight for your support in furthering the C800 bond. Communications, critical, reliable, dependable communications are the backbone of emergency response and the success of emergency responders in this county. It is truly mission critical. We work in different venues, law enforcement, fire, medical, and even county government, including road department and stuff, all depend on our ability to communicate with each other. I come from a law enforcement background, so speaking specifically about law enforcement, we law enforcement officers carry a lot of gear. We wear a badge, we carry handcuffs and a gun, we have belts and pouches and pockets just full of gadgets. But honestly, arguably, the single most important piece of equipment that we have is our radio. And that radio is only as good as the quality infrastructure that supports it. Our ability to talk to dispatch, our ability to talk to fellow officers, our ability to communicate with fire and medical personnel to get the resources that we need to handle an emergency situation. This means hundreds of officers and firefighters and medical personnel transmitting thousands of times a day. And every one of those transmissions is potentially mission critical. To emphasize the point some more, this becomes really critical in life and death situations, especially in team environments. For example, when your Clackamas County Interagency SWAT team responds to the Clackamas Town Center for an active shooter, or your search and rescue team responds to the rural outskirt edges of Clackamas County looking for a missing child or an injured hiker or perhaps a missing elderly person. Your water rescue team, marine patrol, and dive rescue teams responding to a submerged vehicle, overturned boat, possible drowning. These are mission critical times where failure of a communication system is just not acceptable. So I want to thank you for your foresight on this issue. I want to thank you for your support. Thank you for your attention. And thank you for supporting the C800 bond, which will replace, modernize, and maintain an effective radio system that will meet that critical mission demand for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
My name is Rod Yoder, chief of the Aurora Fire District. Been with the fire district 40 years now and been the chief 30, so I definitely know communications is very important. And I know that the C800 communications for Clackamas County is quite important. Our fire district, 64 square miles, we actually surround Charbonneau, but we do serve them also on a mutual aid. We serve mutual aid with Molalla and with Canby. One thing a little different about our district, and we just wanted to bring forth, is that a third of our district's in Clackamas County. Our valuation in Clackamas County is around $243,327,805, a little more than Colton's whole fire district, actually. And we're not part of C800 because we're not operating on 800 megahertz. We operate on a VHF frequency, and that's out of Metcom, and that's most of the county. There's actually only, in Marion County, there's only 2 fire agencies that are on 800, that'd be Salem and Kaiser. So, and we realize law enforcement throughout the county will benefit from this, but, and I'm a citizen of Clackamas County myself, lived there my whole life, so my taxes do go to Clackamas County. So for our share going in, the only time we use 800 radios is when we go mutual aid to mutual aid with Canby or with Tualatin Valley. But when they come into our district and when the ambulances come in, they do work off our VHF. And so we were looking at the amount of taxes that we'll pay in, and Monitor was another fire district, and John Hartsock came out, met with our boards when that concern came up, and all we were looking for was something communication-wise for our portion. We realized it's not the whole tax dollars. It's maybe 20% was a number that was thrown around, was fire, 80% police. So for our 20%, or if we looked at something like Colton's share of what they use the system, but they're also going to get radios somewhere in the neighborhood of $80,000 worth. We won't use 800s unless we're going to work with Canby or Tualatin Valley, and when we're going to help them. When they come to us, they come to our radios. We were looking for maybe some dollars to go towards a link to our dispatch, which would speed up the dispatch because you could have a microwave link instantly sending that information there, and it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $100,000 to $150,000. If you took what we would not be taking in radios, somewhere around 80 or 90,000 if you compared to Colton, and Monitor likewise, they're about the same base as us. We were thinking that would be something we could work towards, and we're hoping that we can work with C800 on that. We just wanted to bring that up.
Thank you. And I've had some discussions with them, and they say the door is still open for conversation.
Okay, that's what we wanted to make sure.
I want to point out that Aurora has 903 citizens in Clackamas County that you serve, correct?
Sounds pretty close.
Yeah, I did my homework. Commissioner Savas.
I do have a question. I'm understanding that it's required at some point in time in the future that everyone move to C800. So is it a goal for your district, or do you interpret that
Marion
differently?
County's not looking, Marion County Sheriff isn't even looking at 800 at this point because of cost and coverage. They go all the way, obviously, out to the east. And so there's no plans for 800 in Marion County, countywide. We looked at maybe combining the 2 dispatch centers. There's one at Salem and one at Metcom in Woodburn, which serves most all the county other than a little bit of the south. But at this point, there's no plans for 800 in Marion.
So you believe in the technology, feel your citizens in your entire district service area would benefit from 800?
If the funds were there, but I don't see any funds there. I mean, they've looked at it, the studies, and we're actually looking at upgrading our VHF system with a trunking system that would work similar as far as the way the channels are distributed, but that's what they're looking for in the next 10 years or so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both. Eugene Schoenheit and John Klur.
Eugene Schoenheit from the Oak Grove area. Just a comment before I start. You know, if Clackamas County did not go with the system and Washington County did, you'd have all the 800 parts you could, need. Okay. I'm not for or against, this proposal or, the bond. I realize, they'll have to, upgrade the system eventually. But what I'd like to say is normally, you know, when you do this sort of thing, do this sort of financing, normally the different users of the system make it part of their budget, and they pay part of the cost rather than, you know, just putting it out for a bond. And the question I have is, and when I've heard from the last gentleman how expensive the system is, and I'm saying, well, why are we, you know, doing the most expensive system possible? You know, why are you doing a Cadillac? That's you know, my question. And I'd like to talk about Paul here, because Paul told us a little history about his experience, you know, being on the board of the Oak Lodge Sanitary, and the need to build a system for the sanitary plant. And basically what happened was that you had several proposals, and as a board, you worked the proposals, you looked at all the different systems, you found a way to cut the costs, and community worked with you. The community also helped you with a financing plan. And if I understand right, you know, by working and bidding and going out after you got the best price and probably saved about 50% on the actual cost, which was about $40 to $50 million, you figure. And I don't see as commissioners that you've actually done this. You've actually looked to see, is this the best price? Is this the best way to do this? And that's my comment. And the last point is, you know, this measure amounts to a tax increase, and it's going to last for 15 years. And I don't think the general public realizes that, but, you know, say, oh, it's only, you know, cost you $25. Well, it's really more than that. It's really going to be for 15 years. So that's my point.
Thank you. Commissioner Savas.
Well, I'm going to have staff try to explain the unique aspect of this. So it's not our project, but we are the ones that are doing this pass-through bonding because we are the entity that is the only entity that can do it for them. So we don't have the control of ownership of this whole thing. So I don't know, maybe staff could better explain that.
I was going to ask Ms. Butman if she could explain whether this is a Cadillac or a Prius.
I'm not sure it's either. But I think we might be better off hearing from someone who didn't put in a card, and that would be John Hartsock, because he knows the system better than I do, since I'm not part of C800. But I do know that the C800 folks worked very hard and long, and I pushed them very hard on it to get the cost of this system down, and that the Washington County folks and the Clackamas County folks have been working together to do the same thing. And so it's not I guess it's not a Cadillac, and I don't think it's either a Prius either. It's maybe an economy, but it's getting the stuff we need to have to last, and to not get ourselves in the situation again. We started out behind with the system. They started out behind with the system that they have now, and so it does cost money to put these things together. I think that there will be a lot more information out there for voters to understand better the costs. I wouldn't go through them tonight for you, but they are on the flyer out there if you want to take a look at them.
I think we'll ask after the last testimony for Mr. Hartzog to come up. Commissioner Bernard.
And I would actually like a better explanation of the term pass-through, because it isn't really a pass-through, except that the tax collector collects it and gives it to them. So it's not like it goes through the general fund and then we give it to them. It just, the tax collector collects it and we give it to them. I think the word pass-through might, I mean, if we look at the library district and that word came up, and folks thought we weren't handling the pass-through correctly, we, thank goodness, don't wear the hat that we would perhaps on the library board. It's a separate district with folks who have worked, by the way, when I was mayor of Milwaukee, so this a few years ago, this was a subject that was discussed back then. So it's been going on a long time, and I feel confident that our professional folks have looked at every option to make sure that this was the best option, or they would have chosen something different.
I actually have 12 seconds left. Just one
Go
more
ahead,
comment.
Eugene.
Just one more comment about Paul and the system. Oak Lodge is really happy with the choice they made.
I would agree.
On what?
Thank you. I'm done.
All right, Mr. Clore.
Chair Ludlow, members of the commission. For the record, my name is John Clore, and I am a resident of Marion County. I come to you tonight as the president of the District 63 Firefighters Corporation, which represents over 40 volunteer and career firefighters and emergency medical services personnel inside of the Aurora Fire District. I'm here simply to reiterate the concerns expressed by Fire Chief Yoder concerning the C-800 bond measure. The District 63 firefighters would very much like to be in support of the bond measure, and I am encouraged to hear from folks earlier tonight that they're willing to come to the table and negotiate in good faith with our district and others in order to find a compromise that's palatable to all sides. So with that, I thank you for your time, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, for the record, I'd mentioned previously, Aurora has 903 citizens in Clackamas County. Monitor has 1160. And Silverton, 409 Clackamas County residences. We go a long way south, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you both. I'm sorry, Commissioner Savas.
Well, I just wanted to say, is Mr. Hartsock coming up?
In a minute.
Okay, I'll just hold my comment till then.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, we're going to add somebody to Mr. Hartsock. We're going to ask Alice Richmond to come forward.
Yeah, I have my buddy here, you know.
Let me give everybody your phone number so they can call you later, okay?
I'm enlisted. Give it
Yeah,
to me.
so do I. Alice, why don't you go first?
Of course I am. Okay. You said my name. Thank you, Maureen. See, I came along because I needed to be in here. This is an entertainment. It's better than television, staying at home on my bed and with my foot on the pillow. Anyway, how many times any one of us, not just in the county, whether you live in Clackamas or in Multnomah, God forbid, we have called 911? How many of you have changed, updated your cell phone because it's more and more efficient? I can go on. So I get upset when our first responder is going to have to come here to beg to have tools for our own safety. It seems to me that on something like this, it should go naturally to it. I mean, why make it such a big spending money on a ballot, on paperwork? We got to go out and vote. And when this issue is part of reality, of our livelihood, number one. We go on the car, we go on this, we do this, we get hit and run. I don't have no cell phone number. Somebody from, see, what I'm saying is the demand of the world, digital, analog versus digital. Actually, she spoke in here more sense than the rest of you tonight. Yeah. So tell me, you did. You explained a few things, but you got lost, John. What I'm saying, these people should not come in here to beg tools that they need to save us peons. See, I even include myself. See, there you go. So it boggles my mind that we spend time in here that is important when I have to wait in here to speak about something even more important, okay? That it has to go to votes. Okay, I heard somebody here doesn't need it, so fine, if you don't need it, but what if those people that don't use this system or whatever, this and that technology, I'll leave it to Neil, to my own police department to do all that. It's just like an earthquake. You think that you're going to be home, you do all your preparedness at home. Maybe you're going to be in Timbuktu when that happens. See, and so you need those tools because it's going to be the people that you are, wherever it is, that they're going to need those tools for communication to come and help, or whatever it is. So in my opinion, whatever the $26 it is a year, somebody can go around the streets in whatever they collect the pop bottles that they are discarded and turn it in. By the end of the year, they probably have $30. Go ahead.
Alice, I've never thought of you as a peon, by the way. Commissioner Bernard.
So actually, that was never an option that I heard, that we could just sell a bond.
No, we'd have to service that with some money, and we don't have
we would have
What
to.
I'm saying is that, pardon me, I have to jump. What I am saying is, there's something with the library earlier. Wesleyan wanted to have a library. We have to have a police station. We provided the bond, and it is open to the public, our library, not just the Wesleyan people. That's something with the police department. People come from all over the place, ask maybe information, maybe this and that. It is within the county, it is within the United States. That's what I'm going. If we have to get the bond, we'll have to get the bond.
We've got to let Commissioner Bernard finish.
Well,
I'm sorry, I had to cut him off.
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah. It happens.
So that was never, I mean, I think what you were asking is these poor fellas have to come and beg to us to put it on the ballot. It was an easy decision. But I thought what you were actually asking is, could the county commission just
do it?
Do it. That was never given. No, I don't. That was never given as an option. Why? And why? That's a good question.
Well, now, let's talk about that. If this total cost is near $60 million, and if we just do it, where should we take that from in the budget? Public safety?
No, you could sell the bond based on the revenue from the taxes, but I think it would require a vote of the people.
Well, no, there won't be. No, Alice, no. This would have to be paid for. Now, we have a general budget, ad valorem taxes, and we delegate that out every year, and you're involved in that. Okay, now, if we just said we can do this, we can't impose a tax on people. They have to agree to that. It's kind of the American way. So the debt service, if we just took out a loan for $60 million, our debt service would be around $4.5 million a year. We don't have that money. Now, Laurel.
Well, can I just
Go
finish?
ahead. Yeah, sure.
Actually, because it's a bond and it goes on property taxes, by law, you have to vote on it, right?
Well, wait a minute.
I'll be out there talking to the people.
I appreciate that. I know you will. Laurel, did you want to say anything? Well, Mr. Hartzog, rescue us. I mean, help us out. I mean that.
Chair Ludlow, Commissioners, you had some questions, and I'd be glad to answer those.
Cadillac or Prius?
I'm going to go a nice Buick.
Lincoln. No, it's a Lincoln. It's a better. It's a BMW.
We looked at a range of options from about 82 million down to about 30 million. The most interesting piece is when we were doing some community surveying, we found out that to go to the 30 million, we would have to reduce the coverage we were planning on putting, particularly in South County and up in the Mount Hood area. And what we heard from the citizens is we lost support if, in fact, we weren't building the system across the county. When we did this the first time, in fact, all of the agencies, including the county, paid for it because a bond didn't pass. The money was a lot lower at that point in time, and we got a lot of federal grant money, which is no longer available. So really our only option at this time is to ask the voters.
Commissioner Smith.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, were you done, John?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, you'll have questions or something. Go ahead.
Mr. Hartstock, I have been asked by people, why don't they get a FEMA grant? They did that in Washington State, and there's all kinds of grants for this money. Why are you going to the people?
The grants that are available are through Homeland Security, and that money, which was millions of dollars right after 9/11, it's even a question of whether the Portland area will get any money in this coming year because we've lowered on our risk assessment. So those money, the kind of money to build the system just isn't there from grants.
Thank you for your answer.
RUASI grants this year, and that's what they are through Homeland Security, because I'm a member of the Regional Disaster Preparedness Organization, is about $2.8 million. And we have a lot of places that money is obligated to go. Commissioner Savas.
John, on behalf of the questions raised by Chief Yoder and Mr. Clore, I'm hoping we can find a remedy or a solution, because it sounds like they've got 64 square miles in Clackamas County and the residents in that area, and I'm hoping we can find something. I don't know the details. I'm sure it's complicated, but can we get there to a reasonable compromise?
I'm certain we can. I had met with them originally. We talked through some ideas, some of the ones that Chief Yoder suggested, and we just need to go back to the C-800 board and talk through that issue, and we understand the concern.
Yeah, because as I understand it, because they're in the county, that they'll be taxed, right?
Yes, sir.
For that. So it seems like they should have some service there, so.
Well, they do, of course. They have the ambulance service, as Chief Davis explained, and of course the Sheriff's Department, which is about 80% of the call volume in that area.
And they have the reciprocity agreements too, which are
Yes, sir.
very beneficial.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you very much. I'm going to close the public hearing, and legal counsel wants to say something.
Good evening, Commissioners. I thought you might want a briefing about what it means if you vote yes. So the measure before you is a referral of this to the ballot. If you pass it, it will be on the May 17th election, and then it's up to the voters. If the voters pass it, the taxes that are referred to to support the debt service will start in November of 2016. The county will issue the bonds based on the revenue that's received from the taxes. We'll simply start collecting revenue and then use that as the equivalent of a mortgage payment. It's the debt service payment. As we issue bonds to borrow the money, we will then be entering into an agreement with C-800, because it's composed of many different municipal entities, to pass that money towards them so they can implement the various projects that are described in the ballot. I wanted to make clear that the county is the financial vehicle to allow this, because it's the only jurisdiction that crosses all the different districts and city lines. But we are not planning on being the project manager or implementer of those funds.
Right?
We're not there for the board. We are not the board of this group.
Commissioner Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Storey, for that explanation. When I ran for this office in 2012, I had always said that any large measures, taxing measures, we would refer to the voters for their decision. And that's why I'm going to vote for this today, because that is in keeping with what I always said I would do. And I'm going to honor that pledge. Now, I really strongly urge people to look at this. You know, we just don't get the money from the federal government anymore. A perfect example is, you know, housing. The big topic in the legislature and all around is affordable housing. The rents are going up. We have transportation needs because a lot of people are moving to Oregon. Well, HUD has cut their budget by 80% to local jurisdictions and states on what they're going to give us in housing. So this is a serious infrastructure need. I hope people consider it seriously and vote with your heart as well as your pocketbook. Thank you.
Commissioner Savas.
Mr. Storey, I was kind of just wondering, based on the discussion we had earlier with libraries, as far as down the road when this passes, if there is an issue with a constituent out there, the ultimate responsibility goes to who? Because we are doing the bonding, we're paying the debt service, but so how's that responsibility? Who do we point folks to from a legal standpoint on behalf of a taxpayer?
The board will be ultimately responsible because it is a county measure that's approved, which will be the reason why the agreement with C-800 will be so important. That'll be the mechanism by which we both convey the funds to them and get the assurances that the funds will only be expended pursuant to the purposes authorized in the ballot.
What board?
Board of County Commissioners of Clackamas. No,
so it's not a district? It'll be directly
no
on us.
districts, no hats, just Board of County Commissioners.
Commissioner Bernard.
Hey, anyway, I just wanted to commend Commissioner Smith, who started out as a no, for doing her homework.
Yes, she did. I'd like to entertain a motion now.
Chair, I move we approve the board order to refer a question to the voters in May of 2016 for general obligation bonds to replace and upgrade the C800 emergency radio system and necessary components.
All right. All right.
Second.
Push that. Commissioner Savas with a motion, Commissioner Bernard with a second. Further discussion. You know, it is often said, especially on our surveys, that public safety is number one in this county. And if you look at our discretionary income here at this county, we spend over half of it for public safety. That means we think it's very important to our citizenry that public safety be paid close attention to. The lack of communication, and I actually didn't realize, beyond, I certainly know there's dead spots in Clackamas County because I kind of fish up the Clackamas, and there's lots of dead spots for my cell phone, and I talked to sheriff's deputies over a period of 30 years, and we've all known about those dead spots. And of all places where people get in the most trouble, it's in our beautiful, majestic mountains. And that's why we've got to get this system back up to where it should be. We're behind. They've tried before. I'm not going to cast aspersions or point fingers at anybody why it's gone this far, but it's gone far enough. You know, $2 a month for the average home. So you say, oh, like Alice was saying, that's, you know, small amount. In fact, over that same 15-year period of time, 15 years, it's $390. Now, that's darn cheap. Wouldn't you want to make sure that your relatives, your friends, yourselves, anybody you drive by in an accident would be taken care of in a prompt and efficient manner? We must do that. So I don't see it as a choice, and I know that these commissioners, and I personally will be going out and talking about this, and the commissioners will take a stand themselves on this and promote it as much as we can. But it's high time that we took care of public safety, and that's communication. I had no idea that you can go into a metal building and not be able to use a radio. That's not exactly, in a police station, you can't use the radios? Yikes. So this has got to be cured. We all believe in this, and I believe this will pass 5-0 tonight. Any further comments or questions?
Well said.
Thank you, Alice. Can I come to your house for cookies? Uh-oh.
You're going to have to beg.
Okay. Well, you mentioned begging earlier tonight. I might beg for a cookie. All right. If we're ready, Mary.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Commissioner Bernard?
Aye.
Chair Ludlow?
Aye. Passes 5-0. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And next, we have a... thank you, Alice. We have a public... It's better than TV, like you said. Public discussion item. Mr. Krupp.
Yes, this is a public discussion item, and any citizen wishing to comment on this item will be able to. This is a request from Public and Governmental Affairs to consider a board order that would approve an expansion of a cable television franchise service area with Comcast of Oregon. And Mr. Gary Schmidt, our Director of Public and Governmental Affairs, will give a short report on this.
Yes, Commissioners, good evening. Comcast of Oregon is requesting an expansion of their service area to provide service to the Street of Dreams project and other residential properties between the existing service area map of the franchise agreement of Clackamas County and to include the Street of Dreams project, which is in the unincorporated area near West Lynn. This expansion would encompass approximately 50 acres and would result in an extension of Comcast fiber by 11,756 feet, which would serve the 9 residences in the Street of Dreams project, plus an additional 12 residences that would be passed by the fiber extension. This expansion of this service area will benefit both current and future residents of this area, with Comcast of Oregon providing state-of-the-art technology as a competitive cable provider. All areas included in this service area expansion would comply with the requirements of the cable franchise agreement between Clackamas County and Comcast of Oregon and the Clackamas County Cable Ordinance. The expansion of this service area would become effective immediately if you approve it. Staff does recommend you approve this service area change, and it would comply with our existing franchise agreements with Comcast.
Commissioner Bernard.
Do we receive extra franchise fee revenue from this?
If you approve this tonight, yes, we would, because these would be additional residences that would then pay those fees through public education government grants as well as the franchise agreement we have with Comcast.
I knew that. I just thought I would make sure other people did.
The public knows it now. That's right, Jim. Well done. All right, Commissioners, any further questions of the presenter at this time?
Yes, I have one.
Go ahead.
Gary, is there any known issues, opposition, concerns from any outside parties?
No one has brought any to my attention, and there's an opportunity tonight for the public to raise it as well, if they had that, but none have raised it to me or to staff up to this point.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to open say that this is a discussion item, and I'll ask if anyone wishes to speak on this. Oh, Alice, you can't do it from there, honey. So if you want to speak.
All for I'll say.
I'm shy of 4 years on my 90. Give me a break.
Wait a minute now. You said you were shy. That ain't true.
Okay. Well, I'm going to tell you why you haven't heard from nobody, because I know exactly where the damn thing is. It's across the Mark Henry's house on top of the hill up there, right? Because it's not in the Westland City, so it doesn't go in front of them. But you're going to be, I don't want to, rattle the can of worms, but I would be shocked and that had they known that they can speak about it, there's a lot of rumbles.
Did you pass the mints?
In the border, in here, coming down the hill and the park. So I'm wondering if, good, because if a lot of people from Western Washington, I would make sure that, see, I speak about you guys also in the county. Where does it justify that you come in here and talk about and say you haven't heard any opposition or any contrariety or any question to ask you? You see what I'm saying? So when you say that, you're not on the right path with Alice Richmond. And I'm glad maybe God wanted me to come in here tonight to hear just for that. And so the citizen that they are 500 feet around, have you sent them a notice? No. The law says you have. I rest my case.
Mr. Schmidt, I believe there's some notice required. What notice is that?
All right, so the Comcast Director of Government Affairs, Tim Goodman, is here this evening, so I will actually ask him to come forward to address that from his perspective. This is in an unincorporated area of the county, and it's not within the city limits of West Lynn, as Alice mentioned. So it is your decision to make, not a City of West Lynn decision. But I will ask Mr. Goodman to come forward, please.
Alice, come on. Okay, Mr. Goodman, thank you and welcome.
Good evening, Chair Laurel, members of the and other commissioners. Glad to be here tonight. This extension is a little bit unusual. Most of our franchises are with cities. We have probably, I think, franchises with 4 counties in Oregon. When you're in the incorporated city, the boundaries are set by the city limits, and we provide service within those. With Clackamas County, as with other counties, there's service areas defined by an actual map, with the map that that governs our franchise, with you now being 5 years old roughly, or actually 6. And so as part of this, in order for us to extend service beyond that map, we have to get your approval in order to do that. Now, going forward, if we are to, when we do this work, we actually have to come in and get all the permits and stuff that are required by the county. And so I would assume that the permitting process would govern any notice or anything that would be required as we extend the fiber to this area.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Sure.
There being nobody else to speak on this public discussion, I'll ask Mr. Chris Storey, our legal counsel, to speak.
Chair, just to clarify the scope of the grant of the franchise here, since this is a cable franchise, it is completely voluntary. There is no taxes involved in what we're talking about. We're simply identifying a service area in the unincorporated portion of Clackamas County that is now allowed to receive cable service, which would be TV and internet for the most part. They're not required. It's simply that we, in an effort to avoid unnecessary infrastructure competition and confusion, the county regulates where companies put in infrastructure to try and provide the lowest cost opportunity for cable service. So this was identified to us as an area that did not have any service, and this is their opportunity to receive service if they so choose.
All right. Commissioners need a motion.
I move we approve the board order approving expansion of the cable television franchise service area with Comcast of Oregon 2, Inc.
Second.
Oh, well, we'll give it to the ladies. Commissioner Smith with the motion, Commissioner Schrader with the second. Further discussion? All right, Mary?
Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Commissioner Bernard.
Aye.
Commissioner Smith.
Aye.
Chair Ludlow.
Aye, passes 5-0. And next, Mr. Krupp.
Yes, so this second public discussion item is an opportunity for the public to comment on the possible advisory ballot measure for this coming May to address issues around road maintenance and funding for road maintenance. I'm going to invite Barbara Cartmill, our Director of Transportation and Development, to give a report. I should make note that we're not expecting the board to take action tonight. This is primarily just an opportunity for the public to express their views to you, and you will be then deliberating on this item next Tuesday in the afternoon, and we have a placeholder item planned for your next regular business meeting agenda for formal action, if that is what you choose to do. So.
Good evening, Commissioners. Yes, you do have time set aside tonight to have some discussions with your constituents on a question you'd like to put forward, but I've prepared a few comments to try to put that question in context for folks if they're not familiar with exactly what you've been dealing with and facing for the last 2.5 years. We've spent the last 2 years doing outreach and education on the road conditions of Clackamas County, how they got this way, and what services the road fund actually supports: roads, bridges, striping, signs, etc. We currently have a $17 million annual gap, and literally how we got there, we've lost our federal secure rural schools funding worth about $5 million a year. Gas tax has been stagnant. Cars are more fuel efficient and or don't use taxable fuel at all. And my famous jaws of death, where we have costs increasing at a higher rate than our income increases. And as you are well aware, we can't simply turn to general funds to fill that gap. It's not an option to use property taxes on roads. It's literally prohibited in state law. After we completed this initial outreach, surveys showed awareness had increased with our constituents, but acceptance and willingness to invest or to pay more for maintenance in our infrastructure was not particularly strong. More recently, we focused on options for raising additional road funds. Did we want to look at gas tax, utility fees, vehicle registration fees, and possibly road districts? We've looked at road packages, combination of roads and where those roads might be or look like. We actually have the little map that we've brought to a number of study sessions up here as well. And we've looked at limiting funding packages to time-specific performance. Would it be 5 years? Would it be 7 years? And after that period expired, then what? Would we reach for a new term based on the good performance that we fully expect to deliver? I'd like to take just a minute to talk a little bit about paving. Pavement condition is much more than just what you see visually. It's more than just a smooth-looking surface. Brand new pavement in excellent condition, begins to deteriorate within 2 years. It needs ongoing maintenance to keep it in an excellent or good condition. Every single year a road deteriorates, it costs exponentially to bring it back. Roads that have deteriorated to a point where people actually see a poor condition cost 10 times more to reconstruct than it would have to provided the maintenance. $40 million in maintenance right now, today, is over $400 million to rebuild in the future. What's happening in Portland is spot on relevant to this situation. Relevant.
That was a new movie out. Yeah.
They waited. They waited so long to invest in their roads that the costs to bring the roads back are astronomical. Costs are higher than folks can even begin to contemplate. We at the county have worked for over 20 years to inform our taxpayers about the need of a sustainable funding mechanism for our 1,400-mile road system. Most cities in the county have road funding taxes or fees. Washington and Multnomah counties have road funding mechanisms and have had for years, while Clackamas falls further and further behind. Tonight, you have asked for public discussion on a possible question for an advisory vote. The question is, shall the county pursue voter-approved funding for deferred road maintenance and safety improvements on the November 2016 ballot? With that, I'll stop talking and wait for any questions.
All right. Well, this is a public discussion, and so we're going to open it up to the public and ask Jose Hernandez and Joe Haverkamp to come up, followed by Ron LeBlanc and Alice Richmond.
You're going to do cheering here. You said 3 names.
Jeez. I've lost control of this meeting.
Go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you for listening to me again. I saw the writing of the $25 per vehicle registration, and that bothers me. And it bothers me because I have 2 vehicles. I'm the only driver. I drive less than 100 miles per week. I know of 2 of my neighbors who have probably more vehicles than I do, and 2 of them close to me that deliver, buy and sell RV trailers. So they utilize our road system hundreds of times above me. And so I believe that it's improper for me to pay $50 a year when I drive less than 1,000 miles, or let's say 4,000 miles a year, and they drive close to 100, and they only pay the $50. And I know that you folk considered almost everything, but I don't know if you considered that. I also looked at the descriptions that you have here, and my residence is in what is referred to as Package C, Oatfield. And I was amazed that the area in which I live is excluded. You have provisions on Concord Road that ends on La Bonita. The only way that my property would be considered included is by extending the boundaries from Thiessen to Hill Road to Oatfield, and that's kind of triangular, and then I would fit in there. But otherwise, Wanda Road isn't included, El Centro isn't included, El Camino is not included, Robin Road is not included. I don't know what that means. I did not know that when I read it until I came here and saw that.
Well, the package is specific, and that seems like and this board's discussed that a great deal. One, that this would have an end date, it would have a sunset, and 2, the specific amount of money that we get is a little over $5 million. We continue to say we're $17.5 million down. Now, if we had all 17.5, we'd be getting into those other areas. We'd be getting into the cul-de-sacs that haven't been touched in 30 years, especially in the highly dense Oak Grove area. But remember, this is a little over $5 million, so we had to be specific to try to touch the worst roads. 54% of our roads are in poor or fair condition. So we are trying to take the worst ones first and work our way from there, okay?
And like I say, I understand that, but for example, I don't ever drive close, and that would not be the cost for that pothole that you see on that big board over there. And there's another one that occurred just
southeast from Highway 99 here, just out leaving Oregon City. That was terrain that came out, and you had to move a whole people from an apartment building there. That's not from driving.
No. But I emphasize to everybody who's listening, if you find a pothole, call the Department of Transportation and Development. They still patch those, you know. They really do.
But the county does not take care of U.S. highways or interstate or whatever, so it is just certain roads, and like I say, my usage of Clackamas County roads is very, very limited. Out of the 100 miles that I drive, primarily the majority of them are on Highway 99 and 205 and I-5.
Jose, would you rather pay a gas tax, or would you rather pay nothing?
I believe that a gas tax would probably be better because it would be paid for by anyone and everyone that purchases gas in our county.
Except for electric.
That means that when someone from the state of Washington drives through one of our roads and buys gas, they are paying for it instead of me paying for it.
Alice, no. Would electric vehicles be paying if it's a gas tax?
I believe that there will become a time when you folks consider the electric vehicles being charged some kind of funding.
The only thing we've got available is a vehicle registration fee. Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, so I just realized, Jose, that you must live in the same area I do because you're naming streets. And Barb can maybe speak to what type of roads we're paving and what type of roads we're not going to pave. And so the El Centro, El Camino, all those are like local housing roads. They're not the main roads. And recently, we paved Thiessen Road right alongside there. So it was paved from Oatfield all the way up and over. So this will address, you know, the packages, you saw the packages there. And so, you know, I'll let Barb speak to that. But I did want to say one thing on the point you just brought up is that, you know, some people feel that the vehicle registration fee is a better mechanism for the people with the electric vehicles and the hybrids to pay a fair share of the increase. Okay, I have 10 vehicles registered right now. So, but I'm paying $86 a year, probably just like you are, for each of those vehicles that I own. And I know that's an expense. And so it'll go up from $86 a year per vehicle to...
I think that's every 2 years.
Every 2 years, I'm sorry, yeah, 43. So thank you for the correction. So, you know, it's kind of, if we have multiple vehicles, more than one, it's a burden that we have. And this I think some people believe this is a fair way to split it, but that's why we're listening tonight. We haven't made a decision on what funding mechanism to use. We're leaning and looking at that, but we haven't decided on what mechanism we're going to use at this point.
And I hear what you're saying, but like I say, since I drive less than 100 miles a week, and I have 2 people within my neighborhood that drive at least a couple of thousand miles each, it's unfair for me to be paying the same amount that they do.
And we hear people saying who drive gasoline vehicles, it's unfair that they pay gas tax when others don't, specifically electrical and hybrid. Randy Harmon, thanks for joining us. What are you going to say?
Good evening. So to answer some of the questions of how those roads are selected, typically we have a computerized pavement management system that goes out and we rate the roads. We look at all the distresses. We also look at the structure of the road to select those. Most of those roads that you see on there are trails or collectors. Some of them we were able to bring some of the local roads in, but as the chair mentioned, $5 million isn't enough to take care of all the needs, but we try to put it in where the most cost-effective roads. If we had more, we could get to those local residential roads.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Mrs. Haverkamp.
Commissioners, I mean, I'm almost asleep. I don't know how y'all are staying awake. I'm also here for the roads, and I have a totally different opinion as to what he said. I'm talking about, I live in a retirement community, I'm a senior, and the seniors say that they think that when you register, that's where you should pay that, not gasoline tax. And they don't drive a lot either. A lot of them don't drive either. But I know you get your gas tax money from the you get your money from the gas tax. And occasionally, I think, last year you did get some money somewhere else within the budget, if I'm not mistaken. And I think that you need to lobby your congressman. You say there's no money there. There are other areas, other cities that are getting plenty of money. And if you can't get your congressman to help you, most of the congressmen that are in our area are doing exactly what Obama wants them to do. We need them to stick up for us. We need money for our gas tax, and they should give some federal funds theirself. They should work on it and get it. Because I know someone else that was also lobbying for federal funds, and they got the federal funds. And if they don't want to help you, I mean to get some negotiator, one of you commissioners that are willing to not pussyfoot with the congressman you're talking with, I think you need to say, hey, if you can't help us, then we need to replace you. And we do need to replace some of them because they're not doing a heck of a lot. But another thing is that you should assign not someone that handles it, someone that is going to actually say, this is the way it's going to be. So, and since I have a little bit of time, sure. I think the library, definitely we need a library. My husband is 83 years old. He goes to the library once a week and gets 3 books, and they're about 1,000 page, each one of the books, and he reads them every week. And so, I read, but I don't read as much as he does. But so, the library, you do have to fund that. And then also, the seniors say they want it on the registration fee, not the gas tax. There's too many electric cars that will not pay anything. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Schmidt.
Well, Joe Haverkamp, thank you for your comments. I can assure you when we go to D.C., I don't pussyfoot around with our legislators
She
at
doesn't
all.
either. She doesn't pussyfoot around here either.
In fact, we have lobbied the United States Congress for transportation funds. One of our big issues is expanding I-205 from the 2 lanes to 3 lanes that exist between Abernathy and Stafford, 5.8 miles. We are listed on the president's budget. His budget passed. Now they just have to appropriate the money to make sure that happens. That is very, very important to Clackamas County. That is a federal highway. Clackamas County has 1,400 miles of roads and 180 bridges. We have more county roads than any county in the state of Oregon. And we feel it is our responsibility, along with the state and the federal government, to keep those roads in place. We cannot wait for somebody to come in and save us. We have to take the responsibility and do it ourselves. Now, I appreciate when people say, I only drive 100 miles or I only drive this far. Well, I own 5 vehicles that will be taxed. Actually, my daughter owns one of them that she's paying for. But 2 of them are farm trucks. But I'll pay the registration fee on that. And the thing is, the people who are older and say they don't drive much, well, you buy groceries. Well, in order to get the groceries to the grocery store, they're delivered by trucks who drive on the roads. You go to the doctor. Those doctors have to get to the doctor's office so you can come and see them. You go to the library to get your books. The people who serve in the libraries drive on the roads to get to the library so you can check out your books. So everything is interconnected. It's just not that you don't drive the many miles. Even if you don't leave home, you have services to your home. You have electricity. You have a heating bill. You have maybe phone service. I don't know what other kind of services you have in your home. Post office. You get your mail, which is very important to seniors. I know that for a fact. So all of these things, goods and services, are also dependent upon our roadways. And so I know this is very, very hard. We have been banding this, try to figure it out. But I will say one thing. I'm happy with the results we're getting from the community, because I always said the community would not take our education efforts seriously unless we promised that we would put something on the ballot. Well, we're going to put something on the ballot, and yes, we're hearing from people. Thank you very much. Email us if you can't come tonight and express your opinion, because we will make a decision on Tuesday, and we really need your input.
And
Thank you.
registration is what everyone says.
Yeah, thank you for that, Joe. I appreciate that. Yes.
Commissioner Bernard.
Well, as far as I know, the federal government doesn't supply any money for maintenance. It all goes to capital, and when I was mayor of Milwaukee, my very first year, I got money for Lake Road. They just got that paved a couple of years ago. I mean, the standards are so high, the cost is exorbitant to do what they require, that you have to spend years raising enough money, do the money to spend their money.
You have to match, usually have to match
So
federal funds.
so they don't supply any millions. We used to get a lot of money from the forest, 14 million, I thought, something like that. We don't get that at all anymore. And the money goes to Metro. I'm not Metro bashing.
Here it comes. I love it.
And then Metro has to distribute it across the Metro region, and everybody wants that money. And then the state of Oregon, most of their money goes to maintaining the freeways and stuff, so we're kind of left here. And I agree with Commissioner Smith. I'm tired of waiting for the federal government and the state of Oregon to step up and take care of the job. We even have to pay for the freeways. We have to give money to help build a freeway.
There's a lot of people don't
It's crazy.
object to this that I know.
Yeah.
They want the registration because of the people, because of electric cars.
Yeah, my only question about the question is that, and I've mentioned this before, is that if you say yes, then we'll put it on the ballot. If you say no, what does that mean?
I don't think there's a lot of people, the roads are really in bad shape. I don't think they're going to say no.
Oh, well, that's positive. Thank you.
No, what I mean by no is then don't put it on the ballot, make the decision yourself? Is that what that means?
Jose, did you have something quickly?
Yes. What I would suggest is for you guys to consider that when we have our vehicles DEQ'd, that mileage is taken, and then that people pay the mileage difference from year to year, rather than us paying a registration fee. Because even the electric cars, I'm sure, are going to require DEQ.
Jose, would you think we should ask more than one question, perhaps not in deference to him? Joe, I hear you, by the way. Would you like us to ask a question about the preference for a gasoline tax versus a vehicle registration?
Well, it's the amount of gas that I use, it's the amount of mileage that I use the highways
We've
on.
already talked about that. My question is, would you also like us to ask a question about gasoline tax versus vehicle registration fee?
I really have no opinion on that.
It's
Well,
only
you would rather-
$25, $12.50 a year.
I recognize that, but there's people that drive 100,000
No,
miles, and I
hold
only
on.
drive
It's
1,000 miles.
$25 a year, Joe, so it'd be a $50 increase, yeah. Right now, it's $43 a year for the state, a year. We would add $25 to the 43 per year.
So it's only 25 you're adding.
Yeah.
Which is
We're capable of
$12.50
adding 43, by the way. So it's 43, it's $43 a year right now the state gets. We're allowed to have the same amount. We're simply saying, what about 25? So it'd be 25 and 43 per year.
Excuse me, can we get a point of clarification, because our vehicle registrations are renewed every 2 years?
$86 they cost.
Well, that's for
All
2 years, 2 years.
$43.
You want to clarify that? Go ahead.
I just know I renewed my car.
I wasn't sure if you're asking me or Barb, but I'll note that the statute that authorizes the imposition of the vehicle registration fee, it is a per-year addition that is collected every 2 years. So if you're talking about a 25-year addition to it, it's a per-year, $25 per year total.
It's not $12.50.
Right, right.
All right, thank you both. We have Ron LeBlanc and Alice Richmond.
You took some of my words already, and I don't know who the
Oh, you can go ahead and sit down then. Okay, just checking.
Give me a break, John. My foot is getting very, very tired. So we're gonna.
Does this mean no cookies for me?
You can have cookies anytime.
Okay.
I didn't bring any cookie for lately, did I? Hey, did you send me a card? Get well soon.
I didn't know you were hurt. You got a flipper that's hurting there, yeah.
Okay. Hey.
It's been a while.
Yeah, Ron.
I tell you, this is better than TV for me. Well, I tell you what. In West Lynn, we already have street levies. We pay for our streets. However, I have my laundry notes in here that bear with me. I knew I had to have my time to speak in here. I usually say my day in court because I've been waiting for a long time about this transportation system, okay? I am very, very acquainted about transportation system locally, metro, state, and from Portland, Maine to Portland, Oregon. So saying that, there was a lot of, my heart goes to the people that speak from their heart, and sometimes they don't really understand, you know, and you don't expect for them to understand. So I'm going to come and see what I have written in here. The repair of and the maintenance of our state, local arterials, collectors, and all other connecting system facilities, major freeways, turnpikes. All the, again, I'm not going to repeat yourself with the arterial collector, and all the other transportation system, citywide, countywide, neighborhood-wide. We don't stay in our local residential, whatever you want to call it, circuit. So, however, you heard a little bit of a license in that. While we are in this dilemma, and Portland is not even in my radio speech because they are messed up with their water, they're messed up with their everything, so they're not even in my thing. But I have a spirit in my, let me see, 57 in West Lynn in Clackamas County I lived, and then maybe another 10 years maybe in Portland. I didn't know Clackamas existed. So maybe 6 to 7 years in here I lived, and I have seen driving maybe Highway 43 coming from work, maybe 80 miles an hour. I barely drive 8 miles an hour now to go through. So, but the road that we are, and she's saying correctly, it is sometimes better to maintain the lesser damaged road than go into and then patch the others. Because there are some roads in the county, in the state, in West Lynn, it is so bad that for one stretch, it might cost $40 million, let alone anything else, because they have to take the whole foot bottom and they reconstruct the whole damn thing, pardon me, God. And so saying that, it would be a fair, justifying judicial factor if the state, I'm coming to that too, how we should deal there. We pay, when I drive my car, my license, my permit, my license plate, etc., and then my gas. We already have, every year in the past, it was 1 penny for the roads, 2 penny, it's a cent, and now we pay more. But not enough. We were good. We were good until the electric cars came about.
Alice, you're going to have to wrap it up.
Yeah, well, you took 5 minutes for the older people. Then we have to have insurance. Bicycle, they don't pay anything. The high brakes, they don't pay anything. They use the same road, whether they are about 3 feet long or they have 2 wheels. I think anybody that is riding, roading, driving, or whatever you want to say, conduit, or whatever you want to say, they should pay their share of the maintenance and the road. The only way to do that, it is not just per the license or your registration. It is every time, even the hybrid, they do use gas. They fill out the gas, they pay the taxes. I understand that if you do it through the gas, even this guy, so he pays the previous guy maybe a tank of gas lasting him a week. He's paying for what he's using the road.
Alice?
However,
Alice, I didn't ever give anybody 5 minutes, but you've used up 5
well,
minutes.
I didn't. Trust me, I didn't. And he's gonna argue with me. I think if the state is keeping the money from the gas taxes, there's gonna be a mechanism in here. If they can, we pay any kind of a fee in the county, but maybe through the state. So everybody that passes in here, they do not live in the county. It's more destination than residents. You need to calculate that to gain what it needs to fund the streets.
Alice, you set a record. Thank you.
You didn't want to listen to me, but you're going to rule the day you're not listening to me.
Well, I listened to you for 6 minutes.
No, you didn't.
6.
No, you didn't. Because I didn't talk fast.
All right, Alice. Mr. LeBlanc, I hope you get through without an interruption.
County Commissioners John, Ludlow, Paul, Jim, Tootie, Martha, thank you for letting me come speak tonight.
So everybody's marked
Yeah. My name is Ron LeBlanc, and I am the chairman of the Clackamas County Republican Party, and I'm speaking on their behalf tonight. Although our roads are important, and so is the safety of each and every person in our county, the Clackamas County Republican Party opposes any advisory votes placed on the ballot for 2 reasons. I'm not going to speak tonight about the merits of the taxes and so forth. I'm going to speak strictly about the ballot initiative for May. The first reason, it is expensive to place anything on a ballot. We all know that. We've all, everybody in here has run for election. We know the cost of getting on the ballot. The Board of Commissioners can obtain the same information through testimony in here, through your emails, through phone calls. There's a number of ways you can obtain the same information that you can get through the ballot system. Use what you have out there. Listen to your constituents. The second reason is when the results come in, it's strictly data. Data can be manipulated, it can be misused, it can be abused. It just depends on how you want to interpret it. Heaven forbid, and I hope I don't see it coming from this Board of Commissioners, but can you imagine a Board of Commissioners using the results of an advisory vote, claiming the public has already spoken at the ballot box? And that would give the board carte blanche to create their initiative, measure, whatever it is that you want to call it, any way that you want to do it, and therefore, and not have to bring it back before the voters, because it won't be a tax. Many fees are, you don't have to run through. Taxes you do. Like I said, I'm hoping I don't see it here, but I know most of you well enough. The Clackamas County Republican Party stands behind the premise all taxes and fees must be brought before the citizens for a vote at the ballot box. So if the Board of Commissioners want to create a vehicle registration fee and or gas tax, propose your bill. Hold public testimony and draft your bill that would be fair for all. Then send the completed bill to the voters at the ballot box. Don't send a questionnaire. This will save the Clackamas County taxpayers money from having advisory ballot or vote placed on the ballot, and give them the final say of any taxes or fees that would be imposed upon them. Thank you.
Ron.
Yes.
Every time there's an election, the more measures that are on the election, the cheaper it is. This ask that you say is going to be very expensive may be as small as $5,000. We've spent more on polling than that. So we've also, the majority of this board said we will bring something forward in November. And I'm a little bit offended by you saying that, we're going to slipshod something or in spite of what the voters may say. We've said we're going to take something to the voters. So I'm not going to go for the big expense because it's not a big expense. And the more questions we can ask voters, the better off we are. So I'm not going to be dissuaded by that, and I'm a little disappointed, like I say. But the bottom line is we're going to keep our promises. Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, well, so I'll just build a little bit on what Chair just said, and that is it's not our intention to use this advisory vote to impose a fee or a tax. And talk about there's a cost, there's a benefit to this. There's a huge benefit, and that is that we're spending about $150,000 a year. And in the last 2 years, we've spent those dollars, and it's come back in the survey that people still think there's not a problem with our roads. And knowing we're going to take it to the voters, that this advisory vote to educate them in the advisory capacity and say, in the 150 word, or whatever the word limit, 175 word statement, it would describe our problem. It would define our problem. And the question, if you could put the question back up on the screen, it'd be great. The question is, it has the intention, and we have, I believe there's consensus amongst us that we are going to put it on the ballot in November. So the actual fee, so there will be no fee or tax imposed as a result of this advisory vote, none whatsoever. But it's fully intended that the fee and the tax, whatever it is we put up, will be on the ballot. That's my intention, and I believe that's the intention of the majority here.
That's all we would ask, is that be on the ballot. But again, I'm questioning the need for an advisory vote.
Yeah, but this whole thing will ideally educate and save money for pennies on the dollar.
Commissioner Schmidt.
Thank you. Ron, I'm equally a bit surprised at this. Being a Republican myself, I'm sure you have a telephone that you could call any of us up and ask for clarification on this tonight. It will be inexpensive to do this. And you're claiming that somehow we're going to manipulate the data and cheat the public. I'm severely offended by you, as well as you know me, that we would do that. And it was my idea to come forth with this, because as much polling as we've done, I know people and I know how they are. They don't make up their mind until they have something in front of them that they have to vote on.
That's the truth.
Yeah, until you have to vote on something. So I prefer to have 3 questions. I want to know what people want to do. I think this has a good chance of passing, but I want to know how people want to pay for it, and I want to know how much they want to pay. We have a $17 million gap. This scarcely covers that, but we're doing what we think the people will accept and do on that. And I made a promise when I was running for commissioner, and I have kept that promise. And the Republicans have held me to that, and the general public has held me to that all fee increases, taxes, including the C-800 radio, would go to voters. I kept that promise to you. For you to come here today and make these claims and accusations, I am appalled at, and you can go back to the Central Committee and tell them what I said.
Commissioner Bernard.
I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I somewhat agree with you. I just don't think you should use the ballot box as a polling tool. I would prefer that we worked, had hearings, and decided what to do. I mean, that's my preference. But I also support, because I got it on there, that it's simply advisory. My only concern is that if you vote yes, what does that mean? If you vote no, what does that mean? And I think maybe the wording of that, my understanding was we're going to make sure that my worry is if they say no, then that means it's over. And then if we try it again, they'll say hell no. So I have mixed feelings, but I think as a board, we kind of worked through that, and I'm satisfied that we got that. But that's why we have these hearings, so people can come and tell us what we're doing right or wrong. So I don't know.
I have to say, I threw a hypothetical out there because I started out with, I don't think this commission would do it, but if that's the way it got interpreted, apologize.
It was.
But it's a possibility. I've seen it in other locations. I haven't seen it here, though.
It ain't here. Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, I don't think we'll manipulate anything. My own personal opinion is, even though I changed my vote the other day, I was just, Jim, you brought it back, bless your heart. And this is not to disparage any other commissioner here. It's fine if we have differences of opinion. To me, it just seems cleaner to keep up the education, put it on the ballot, and get up and down. My commissioners, it gives them some comfort to do this. I'm willing to go along to get along on this one. And Commissioner Smith, don't worry, I just got really yelled at by the Democratic Party the other day. And, oh, truly, I did. It was not much fun. And so actually, you're a much more friendly face to me right now as a.
She's going to become a Republican because of this.
No, I'm not. Oh, my God.
That's fantastic.
No,
Yay.
I'm going to be in big trouble. Thank you.
My concern
I'm gonna
is
get
just-
yelled at again, you know, and they
My
know
con-
where I live.
My concern is just, let's save the money and move forward.
Okay, Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, just real quickly, I don't disagree with Commissioner Bernard that we should use the ballot as a polling. And for me personally, it's an educational piece for pennies on the dollar. So there's a cost savings to the taxpayers.
Big time.
Yeah, I just question, is that the right place? Thank you very much.
Commissioner Bernard.
My father was a staunch Republican, and I spent many hours talking to him, and many times he would come to my side if we had an opportunity to work it out. And that's what I'm hoping we can do.
Well, actually, I think you came to my side tonight.
Yes, I know.
Oh, I'm going to remind him of that too, by the way.
Had my
Please,
finger on
I
that switch.
don't want to get yelled at again. Please, come
It
on,
wasn't
okay?
by us.
I know.
Okay, thank you both. We're going to start the clock again on Alice. What was that? Huh?
Just come to me because in West Lynn, this is why we had to go 3 times to the police station.
We don't know.
If we put too many measures in one time, people, they're going to vote the 1, 2, and then forget the other. And not pass it.
Well, they didn't do that in Portland.
Who cares about Portland?
That's exactly what I think. Thank you. All right. Thank you all. I appreciate it. Now, let me just state this. No board action on this tonight. This item is for discussion, public comment only. Next week on Tuesday, February 23rd at 1:30 p.m., there's a policy session on this subject. And Thursday, February 25th, we will have a public hearing at a business meeting at 10 a.m. So that would be on February 25th to finalize this. I still believe we need to ask more than one question. Maybe we should change this question because I don't like the word safety. If we are saying this money is only going for road purposes, and I mean the cover of the road, no bicycle paths, you know, as far as I'm concerned, no brush clearing, no shoulder work, no signage, no guardrails. This is going to go on pavement. And we need to say that, and the word safety, I believe, needs to be dropped out of this. But we'll work on this next Tuesday. I've appreciated all your testimony tonight. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we are at the consent agenda. And I'll ask the clerk to read the consent agenda by title.
Okay, the consent agenda under Health, Housing, and Human Services, approval to apply for preschool promise, mixed delivery model grant from Oregon Department of Education, approval of amendment number 1 to the agency services contract with Northwest Family Services for children of incarcerated parents, parenting inside out, and youth mentoring, approval of agency services contract with Clackamas Women's Services for evidence-based parenting education classes, approval of a subrecipient agreement with Todo Jutos for youth drug and alcohol prevention in Canby, Sandy, Estacada, and Molalla, approval of a revenue agreement with CARE Oregon for the clinic capacity building project, approval of an intergovernmental agreement, amendment number 2, with the State of Oregon Department of Human Services, Aging and People with Disabilities Division for the provision of the Oregon Money Management Program as the regional coordinator for the 4-county Metro Aging and Disabilities Resource Connection Consortium. Under the Department of Transportation and Development, delegation of authority to the Director of the Department of Transportation and Development to execute a quick claim of the permanent slope easement for a planned redevelopment adjacent to Southeast Sunnyside Road. Under elected officials, approval of previous business meeting minutes. Under our development agency, approval of a disposition of development agreement with Lanús Development for acquisition of real property. Under Water Environment Services, approval and acceptance of a service connection mortgage in the North Clackamas service area for Clackamas County Service District Number 1. Approval of the contract documents with Peroxy Chem to furnish and install 15% peracetic acid turnkey dosing system, equipment maintenance, and technical services for the Tri-City Water Pollution Control Plant. And approval of contract documents between Clackamas County Service District Number 1 and OBEC Consulting Engineer for consulting services related to Clackamas County Service District Number 1, 82nd Drive Bridge North Approach Replacement Project. Phew. And that concludes the consent agenda.
Any questions about the parasitic acid turnkey dosing system?
Yes, I'd like to pull all of these for discussion and individual votes.
That's rejected by the chair. Anyway, any further questions and/or if you want to pull any of those, Mary? Oh, wait a minute. How about a motion?
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Bernard, seconded by Commissioner Schrader. It is so late. All right. Any further discussion on this? Mary?
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Commissioner Bernard?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader? Aye. And Chair Ledlow.
Aye, look at that. We're just unanimous all night long. And now I might add to the county administrator the information that the commission has pretty much agreed not to do any kind of talking after you do. So that make you feel guilty or anything? And tell us something
I had
important.
several pages I was going to.
Yeah, good luck on that.
Yeah. Let me just say this, though. I just wanted to thank our outstanding staff who work for the Public and Governmental Affairs Department for the great job they did yesterday at the State of the County, putting together that program. They really did an excellent job getting the materials together, supporting the board, making sure all of the equipment was organized and put up. Just fabulous. Very professional job. I want to thank Gary for that. And while I'm doing that, I'll just mention that I also just learned that just last month, in the month of January, our county website had 500,000 page views.
Wow.
So about 50% of those were from mobile devices. So again, it's a excellent testimony to the great job our public and governmental affairs staff are
And I
doing.
might add, that system came about because when I came on this board, frankly, the website was a turkey. But we put some money into that. It's an outstanding interactive system now, which we really like. So now, even though I said we had a gentleman's agreement, this one gentleman wants to say something. So what is that, Commissioner
So
Bernard?
I'm going to try to do it in 2 sentences.
All right.
Maybe 3. I wasn't here last Thursday because I attended a public safety mental health conference where Clackamas County was described as the gold standard.
Excellent.
Just want to say that.
There you go, public safety. Commissioners, anybody else? I'll just open it up. We do have an order here. Martha?
I just want to remind folks that I won't be here next week. We did talk about going to talk to our federal delegation, and I'm going to be at the National Associations of Counties next week. So as needed, commissioners, I will call in.
Yes, you will, several. I'll leave a list for you. So I think that's it. I think that's everything. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a great 3-hour evening. There being no further business before the commission this day, this meeting's adjourned. Thank you.